shocked, man. It's like 99% of the world's commerce doesn't operate on copy.
True. Yeah.
And then I saw this one flip with Russell Brand, where he said years ago, it's like, how do you know a product shit? And it's like, it needs advertising to sell. And I go, oh, that stung, right? So it's big pages, big pages of stuff. And then after that, I started like thinking like multidimensionally, right? Like about sales processes, sales systems, human psychology and everything. And just things just started to click. And, things just started to click. And I was like, okay, then it's like I started competing on economics, right? Because words can only do so much, right? Because the way people read words.
What do you mean by competing on, just to define that? What do you mean by competing on economics? I like the preamble. I like to just kind of dive right into it and
the rolling start.
Yeah, exactly. Because what people seem to like about this show is that it's not like, hello, I've got Alen Sultanic on here today, and today we're going to talk about how to become a fractional CMO. Like, we just don't do that shit. We
did prepare for 2 weeks though.
2 weeks.
We schemed the whole call, didn't we?
We did, totally. What did you want to call this one? It was like cocaine and what else?
Cocaine conversions.
And conversions. I'm going to mark that down. We're going to put that as the actual.
No, don't. That's a bad Google image to have, dude. Like back in the ClickBank days, it's like that shit followed me for a good decade.
Oh, did it? Like some of your old. What was the first offer you did? Like, what was the first thing that got you into direct marketing? Like, right? Like, you're not from the U.S. originally, right? Where you like, give me a little bit about the background of like your life. How did you become Alen Sultanic, Dark Lord of marketing?
I started in the porn industry. I ran Pornhub, X videos, and all those good ones. No, I'm kidding.
Nice. Sure, man. Whatever.
That's one thing I always wanted to do. I never got into it though.
Yeah, so, did you want to be talent, or did you want to be a producer? Like, what was your goal there?
Producer. Because I think like they're the only honest industry in the world, right? Like they're just kind of like, here's what it is. This is what we do. No shame in it. Everybody else pretends like to be something else, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Plus, like they're so. I don't know. I agree with you because like people can't hide from their desires, right? Like you really want to find out like the stats, like the like Utah, Mormon land has the highest porn consumption in the whole country because it's all these like repressed Mormons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All the black on blonde stuff, like the really racial stuff, that's all really popular in like Mississippi in the South because the racists are so turned on by it and they hate themselves for it the entire time, right?
Is this the best opening of your show so far?
Dude, I mean, no, we had Julian Reyes on the other day.
Oh, boy.
We were talking about who knows what within 5 fucking seconds. It's an explicit show. It's all good.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, that's very true. Like Mormons do have, we did a lot of business with Mormons back in the day, like because they were in all the floors. And they're pretty good people. I do like them, but then when we get to Vegas, man, they let loose a little bit.
I know a fair number of ex-Mormons here in Seattle, and they like to party. They like to party a lot. They party good. They're good partiers. Yeah. Yeah, they've been repressed for so long that
but only after they hit 30 for some reason.
You think so?
Only after 30, dude, they go wild.
I wonder if that's just like when they finally escape the shame of being in that. I've worked with Mormons many times over the years. They're always delightful people. They always pay when they say they're going to and whatnot.
Yeah, I like them. They're good people. Like, I mean, I'm not really religious, but I do respect them. They're honest. They're good people. Like, I mean, I like a lot of the Mormons I know, they're good. They're honest. Like, I mean, a lot of my good friends in this industry are Mormons, and I mean, I do like them. Yeah.
There's a lot. So if porn wasn't how you started, how did you get into this stuff originally? What was your like? Because I think you're a few years younger than me, but I think you started in marketing a little bit earlier than I did actually. But what was your beginning?
Yeah, like 2002, 2004. I was working at GNC making like $6 an hour or something back, $5 maybe. I don't know, right? I always loved the internet, right? And at that time, the pickup artist community was taking off, right? And so there was this like the first community, right? The first community that spawned all the,
Was that like when the game came out, when Neil did his?
No, way before that. Like this was when Neil was
Ross Jeffries kind of stuff.
Before this was like Neil was like a dork, like Tyler Durden wasn't there. Mystery was still like a dude in Toronto, right?
Oh, wow,
like trying to wear feathers in his ass or whatever. So there was this community called Fast Seduction, right? And I don't know how I found it. And out of that, like became friends. And this was actually where, Owen Cook, the genesis of Tyler Durden, the Real Social Dynamics and all that shit. That's where he came out. And so that's where it started. And then there was this like secret mastermind, right, of sorts back in the day called Underscore, literally just Underscore. There was no name for it, Underscore. It was hosted on some weird like IP address, whatever. And there was there was a number of us in there, right? And it was all the dudes that were really into this shit. And there was this one guy out of Australia. He's, you know, back then you went by handles, you know, not like real
totally.
names.
Yeah. Actually, I'm in like the seduction syndicate with all the people that are, like, I'm still on that email list.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny when we meet each other because everybody has two fucking names, right? Like Vin DiCarlo is Ryan, but I can never remember what to actually call him or whatnot.
Yeah. I heard there's this one called Neil Fiore. He's pretty good.
Michael Fiore.
Michael Fiore. That's right.
He's famous. He was on television.
He's awesome. Yeah, he was awesome. I heard he had a lot of great offers.
Stalkers. Yeah. He does have a lot of. They bought my house. They did pretty well for me, you know?
Awesome. Yeah. So there's this thing called Underscore, right? And on there, like, so I'm making like $5-6 an hour, and like this dude.
Where were you living at that point?
Charlotte.
Okay, cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he posts, and it's like, what the hell did he post? It was like $30,000 a month or something, promoting Commission Junction affiliate, right?
Crazy money from where you were.
And I was like, holy shit! Like, I got to figure this out. You know, I'm like magic, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always loved the internet. Like, I was really heavy into the design scene back in 98, 99. And so there was this design scene. So I used to be a designer, like a graphic designer. So it's kind of like digital graffiti type of thing. So I was really heavy into that. And, you know, I learned how to build sites and, you know, websites and code and everything, right? Just didn't know how to make money with it. And so when that happened, I was like, fuck yeah. Right. So it was like freedom, right? There was this opening of opportunity for me. And I was like, I got to figure this shit out. And so, you know, there was no YouTube. There was no, nothing, right? Nothing. Fucking nothing. Like, it was nothing.
2002, 2003 is what we're talking about. So
yeah, like that range.
You were like 20, maybe 19, 20.
Yeah, I was young. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can't remember how old I was, but anyway, so like it was like I was like, there's nowhere to learn, right? Like, I mean, I can't even remember. I think Google was like just a thing, whatever. So you couldn't really search. There was like forums, and so I found some forums, right? And I just started like digging. And literally, dude, I remember like I would have like forums open, and I would just go like, you know, 50 tabs, you know, I would learn. Wow. And so I read like
like warrior forum type stuff. I don't know if
warrior. Yeah, there was warrior forum. There's like some other ones, whatever, but it's like, I would like read all of it. And, so I read the whole forum. It took me 3 months, literally the whole forum. Like, I would open, like, I would, you know, go click, you know, back there was like 1, 2, 3, 4 in the little lines. Mm-hmm. So I would click, I open up tabs. I was read the whole thing.
Are you like a speed reader? Like, I mean, it seems like, is it you just kind of pedantically go through it, or do you tend to absorb information pretty easily?
In NLP terms, I'm an information sort. So like, I just absorb information all the time. That's how I know about so much. So I just 24/7, just can't turn it off, you know, just reading, learning. Nuts. I don't watch TV. I just watch shit to learn. So anyway, so I read the whole forum, and it took me like 2 years to make 24 cents. Yeah. And so like,
that's a very specific number. What brought the 24 cents? Was that like your transaction for one thing, or what?
It was like selling ads. Like, there was some ad network that were like selling ads, whatever. And it was like, you could run ads on your site. And like somebody clicked and I made 20, like 2 people clicked or something. I made 24 cents, some shit like that. And that was a game changer, like 24 cents. Right. And then, back in the day, you know, it was like the big thing, because then I was like, okay, I got this. Right. And then after that, I built this software, and it was basically, we just like scrape the internet, and then like we just upload shit all over the internet, like a bunch of pages, you know, like it would scrape the internet, suck in the content, translate it through like 5 languages, and then spit out original content, because the computers weren't smart back then. They couldn't detect that was the same content, and so it ranked, had tens of thousands of sites, whatever, and subdomains, right? And so did really well.
So you were like 20 years old or something like that. You spent 2 years busting your ass. You finally made 24 cents. When you made that 24 cents, was that like did you get like really happy because you finally had the money coming in from it? Like, that was breaking the seal, so you were actually making money that way? Like, what was your emotional reaction when that happened?
I think it was like, holy shit, this is possible. Like, it really works, you know, because there was no, like, now it's like so easy. Like there's all this information and knowledge. And now back then it was like, you really have to dig into it. So then, after I built this site, this software, whatever, like I was working, had a job, like whatever, scrape money to build this thing. And I built it and then made a bunch of sites and started making money off of it. And then, at the time, then I started, what happened? Yeah. So I think I was going to college or something. And then while in college, like the first site I built was like this. I took, Real Player back in the day. You know,
totally, yeah.
So I found a whole bunch of songs, like they were on different servers, and I made like the first, Spotify version, right? But it was hosted on DreamHost, right? And at the time, it was like, the hosting bill, like shit blew up, like it blew up everywhere, right? And so anyway, it had like shit ton of people using this thing, right? And I was like, fuck, I don't want to pay the fucking hosting bills.
Totally.
Shut this shit down, right? And the next thing you know, music thing got big. And then there was this somebody made this thing, this photo sharing software, right? Like somewhere, and like I bought it, whatever, and then I uploaded it. It was called Ziga, and I uploaded it, and at the time, like if you look at the internet, right, like the playbook of the internet, of all the startups in the internet, is Craigslist, right? That's kind of the Genesis website. So Match.com, Tinder, and all these sites from the dating section, like Indeed.com from the job section, like real estate from the real estate section, like, from everything. Like, so Craigslist is the Genesis site for everything, like the blueprint for the internet, right? So
you're saying like Craigslist basically came out and basically showed people how you can kind of get your piece of real estate on the internet and make money off it, is what you're kind of, they were the first one to kind of show how to do that, and these other companies all followed along, or what are you saying there?
Oh, Craigslist basically categorized the internet. Like, so back then it was all about organizing, categorizing, right? So Yahoo was the first categorization thing, but Craigslist was the real essence of it, because people could post, and it was the classified sites. So if you look at everything, like every analog of today's sites, and they're popular, like you can trace it back to Craigslist, right? Every single one of them. So for example, like automotive sales, car trader, and auto trader, right? If you look at like real estate, you got Zillow, right? If you look at the personal listings, you got the dating sites. If you look
that makes total sense.
Yeah. If you look at a bunch of them, like, let me go to it right now. It's been years. I haven't really used Craigslist, but if I go to Craigslist right now, for example, so it's like there's community, right? That's Facebook right there, right? If you look at housing, apartments is housing. That's like hot pads. If you look at for sale, that's like eBay, right? If you look at discussion forums, that's all the Facebook groups now, right? If you look at services, that's Angie's List, right? Angie's List. If you look at jobs, and so that's all the job boards. So like, it's there, right? If you look at gigs, creative, domestic, writing, whatever, if you look at resumes, so it's the blueprint. So I had this photo sharing software where like you couldn't share photos on Craigslist. So what you could do is like post a link to it, right? What you were selling. Shit ton of people use it, like thousands of users a month, like because it would tag the picture and the link, and it would let you create your own account. So we just had a lot of people use it. And once again, the fucking hosting bill.
Yeah. How were you? Did you have a monetization strategy, or was it just like,
no, not at the time? No.
So basically you got successful and it was costing you a ton more.
Yeah. Well, you could monetize it back then, right? Other investors. So I was like, fuck it. I was like, hosting bill kept going up and like it kept growing. I was like, it was on DreamHost. And I'm like, I can't pay for it. Couldn't afford it. And so I pulled the plug on it. And then like, I think a few years later, like a Flickr came out, and it's the same shit, and like, sold for 15 mil or whatever. But this was before the acquisition phase. So I did that. And then somewhere in between, I did this site called Black Hat Insider at some point. And it was like selling the software that I used to build these like sites. But before that, like, I would try to learn everything I could about marketing and shit. And then it was like on this journey, it was like basically like, well, what's one leverage skill, right? Like what's one skill to learn to make money? And so it was like sales. Okay. And then it was like, okay, well, copywriting, right? And so when I was in college, I was deep into this shit. So I was like horrible at school. I had like under 2.0 GPA.
What were you going to school for? Like, what was your major at that point? Like when you were a little kid, what did you think you wanted to be before you became the dark order of internet marketing, Alen Sultanic?
Not a dark
gigantic biceps, by the way. They're like,
shit, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. I can tell you a secret about that, actually.
I'm sure you could.
Yeah, after the call. But we what the fuck was I talking about? So at the time, then we were, so it was like learn the skill, leverage, right? So I was like, all right, cool. Found Gary Halbert, literally devoured everything he had, like found all these guys just like went all in, like learning it, right, et cetera.
So all like scientific advertising, breakthrough advertising, John Carlton stuff, Dan Kennedy.
Oh yeah, but no, even like further, because like it's funny because like not many people know the history, like John E. Kennedy, of the history of copywriting and advertising, Rosser Reeves and everything. So before that though, when I was in college, right, so I'm learning all this shit, and I'm in college, and like, so they kicked me out of business school. I was going for like, I was actually aiming for 4 degrees. I was like economics. I think it was like economics, accounting, marketing, and some other shit. I don't know, but it was like at the time. So my dad got cancer. I was like, fuck, I got to finish this. So I was like, I'll just take one. So I focused on marketing. And so they kicked me out of business school. They're like, you can't come back this semester. Your GPA is too low, whatever. So they're like, you got to take a bunch of random classes, you know, to get your GPA up. So I took like architecture, which I fell in love with. So if I wasn't doing this shit, I'd be an architect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I took this, some weird, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, but story and stuff. And that's when I discovered a hero's journey. Right. Yeah. And so I studied the hero's journey for a semester and just forgot about it.
Just for people that are listening, the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell is the one who kind of really figured out that framework. And basically it's the structure that a lot of myths, a lot of stories throughout the entirety of human history fit into. And even if they weren't consciously doing it, it's like what every movie is based off of, what every book is kind of formatted off
of. Yeah. So did that, forgot about it, did the Halbert team, you know, all of them. And so I was like, so what I do is, now, most people don't know how Halbert learned copy. They forget that. So it's like copy, you know, got started back in the day by Johnny Kennedy. And he was a, you know about that story, you know about Johnny Kennedy?
And that was like 1920s or something like that? Or what are we talking about? I mean,
I think it was between 1890 and I think it was 1903.
Like the really, really early birth of copywriting kind of thing. Yeah. As a form. Yeah.
Yeah. So he went and basically said like he went to, I think, can't remember the agency, but it was like he went to the agency and said, I know, because nobody knew what salesman advertising was. They just knew you had advertising.
Back then, advertising was just like, we have chairs here. If you want a chair, come get a chair, right? It was very, very fact-based. It was just like, here's what I sell. There was no romance to it. There was no emotional aspect to it. It was just like, here's my stuff. And then it kind of turned into what we refer to as advertising and marketing over time.
Yeah. So he went to, I'm trying to look him up. He went somewhere, he asked him, but basically he wrote Reason Why Advertising. So he went to the guy and said like, I know you don't know what advertising is, whatever, I know. So like he wrote him a little note, said, you know, advertising is salesmanship in print. And that's what the first one, that was the genesis of that. And then he birthed the whole direct response industry. And so until like 1950s, that was really strong. And then in 1950s, you know, TV came up and Roster Reeves came up and was like, boom, right? Now everything went to branding, short form, whatever. And they did that until, and it was forgotten.
Because of the birth of television, it kind of moved over from more direct response oriented stuff to more branding oriented stuff.
Yeah.
Is that because the advertisements were short, so you just didn't have a chance to really do like a sales message, or why do you think
you could dimensionalize the product better? Like you could demonstrate it.
You had the visuals, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you could demonstrate it. You didn't have to, and like, so it's easier to absorb information through symbology and visual than it is through written word, right? Because word is like a tertiary form of communication. If it makes like, you know. Yeah. So anyway, so did that. And then it was forgotten. And then Halbert, you know, was like, his whole thing was like, you know, he figured it out too on his own. It was like spent like 10 years trying to do it, but he had to go to the Library of Congress to do it. So what I would do is like, when I would read a Halbert letter and all this stuff and everybody else is like, when they would reference something in there, I would put that as a note. Right. And when I was done reading all the Halbert stuff, then I would go read all the stuff that Halbert learned from.
Okay.
So after Halbert, after I read all the people that he learned from, then I took a note of what they learned and I would go after what they learned from. And so I kept going down all the way to the end, like, you know, to the Robert Collier letter book.
The primordial copywriting stuff for persuasion stuff. That's kind of, the base of it.
Yeah, exactly. So those are called super texts, right? So like what happens in our industry is like knowledge is regressive in our industry, right? By large. And so what I mean by that is like, it's like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. So the same thing happened in Hollywood. Like, so if you look at the first generation, like, you know, directors, their movies were better. If you look at the 80s guys, they're pretty good, right? 90s guys were real good too. But then after 2000, like the fourth or fifth generation directors, it's all like special effects and like no story. It's just like, you know, like just it's there, but it doesn't have soul in a sense.
It's similar to like TV writing. So my background, I studied television and film stuff in college, and they talk about like Patty Chayefsky being what, you know, being an amazing television writer from kind of the dawn of like proper dramatic television. And a lot of writers, you know, early on in the television industry came from theater. They came from, you know, that kind of like even radio plays or things like that, or even being novelists, but they really had studied the structure of story and understood that kind of deeper, more theatrical stuff.
Yeah.
But then over time, all of the writers now are people who just learned how to write from watching television.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, that's why you have the classics, right? Like 70s has classics, 80s, 90s. And then after that, it's like you have less and less classics, right? People don't really, I mean, you have few like Heath Ledger's Batman and stuff, but
totally.
Yeah. So the same thing happening in marketing, right? So it's like, basically that's what's happening today. So it's like, basically what happens is like now people learn from derivatives, right? So it's like, you know, Halbert learned like from whoever, and they'll learn from whoever. So in this industry, for example, this person learns from this to this to this to this to this. And so they don't understand the principles of marketing at all, right? And so then it's like they're teaching this stuff, and it's like the people learning from are learning like a faded out photocopy of knowledge, right? And so what I find in our industry by large, knowledge just tends to be regressive. It goes like this. And what happens actually is technology gets better and, the algorithmic pixel and everything. So it matches people better with bad marketing. And that's why we are where we are, right? So it's kind of like, I have this thing, it's not blind leading the blind. It's like blind misleading the blind a lot of times, right? So anyway,
you're saying these are people who have learned. So for instance, like I always make fun of these like 22-year-old copy gurus who are out there. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you've never had a winning control. You've never done anything except for sell copywriting material. You have
or BizOp. BizOp is a different laws of physics, right? Like give me money, I'll give you money. So it's like, if you take a lot of
the easiest thing to sell in my opinion.
So if you take out like, I'm not going to mention names out of respect on this call, but it's like, we all know, right? We all know. So it's like, if you point out a lot of gurus and you say, you literally subtract like on their resume, BizOp, they collapse. Can't do it.
Nothing. They have nothing.
Nothing, zero. Yeah, exactly. So like,
that's one of the reasons I didn't want to get into teaching. Like it took me a while to get into teaching for a variety. I got sick and whatever, but also it was like, egotistically, I was like, yeah, but I'm doing it. I'm out there doing it with my own offers and things like that. So the idea, I've never liked those guys who their entire business was always BizOp or teaching things. I'm like, prove to me, selling money is relatively easy. Prove to me you can go do it in some niches, some actual niches.
Or without high ticket, without that 10, 20,000.
$37 front end or $50 front end. Go and show me that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, the BizOp shit changes lots of things. So back to my story. So with that, it was we were anyway. So what happened? Yeah. So I learned at Halberting, learned to write copy. And then I wrote the offer for a Black Hat Insider. I got a bunch of people, $97 a month. That was good. Ran it. Didn't really fulfill on it much. I mean, honestly, whatever. It's like, I ended up getting really good at marketing and sales. Yeah. Really fucking good. Like that muscle, that bicep was like getting built up, but the product side wasn't, right. And so you're saying you got really good at selling, but maybe you weren't fulfilling the way that you maybe should have been, or weren't giving your customers exactly what they really. Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why I swung the other way, like last like some years, like I swung all the way the other way. So what happened was, so anyway, we were doing that, and then was running that, and then I did this other site, this membership site, and we put 5,000 people with $97 a month, right? And
damn, dude.
Yeah. And we built it, and it was like $400,000 a month back like around 2008, 7, 8. And it was good, man. It was like big money back then, right? And it was like, this is awesome. Yeah. And then I invented, so this is where I developed the upsell path. Like, so a lot of people that use the upsell path today is like I invented on the membership site. I literally came up with it, right? And so it's been used.
What was the inspiration for that? Like, what do you think? I mean, obviously you've studied really intensely, but one of the things I like about, in your NHB group, et cetera, you're very innovative. Like you're somebody who really thinks about marketing, and you're not just doing the same thing as everybody else, or always being.
I love it. It's magic.
Yeah.
Well, I'll sidestep a story, right? So like when I came into this, like, in the beginning of the story, making like whatever's $5, it's like I came into this magical land, like, the Narnia story of children coming to the clouds, magic, right? Like, holy shit, I don't have to go. Because I remember I had this class, right? And it was like a marketing class or something, and the teacher was like a prick, and he said like, when you guys get out, you'll make 30K a year, and you have to work yourself way up. And I was like, fuck, man. Like, so it was like, when I found this, it was like I came to this magical land, right? And it was like, holy shit, this is like magic, right, to me, and it still is magical to me. So until like 2018, I had a different last name on Facebook. I wasn't on social media at all, deleted everything. And I came back, and I was like, magic is gone. Like, I where is this shit? Because everywhere you turn, it was like either you pay for a mastermind, or you pay for a course, or you pay for a coaching, whatever. I was like, where's the magic? Because remember, back then we all knew each other, we supported each other, we all helped each other, and like that was gone, right? And with nothing held back, I was like, I want to bring that magic because I miss it because it felt fuzzy, it felt warm to me, it felt it was like a safety net where it's like it was like it was you and a bunch of dudes doing it, because not many of us back then, right? So
there weren't. No, a small group.
Yeah. So I remember I built that site, did really well, and I took some like personality test, and I was like, okay, I was like running it completely wrong. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm out. And then I took, I always have like, a lot in savings so that I don't have to work for at least a decade, right? So it's like at least a decade, I don't have to do anything. And that gives me the ability to kind of like step out of the market for a year or two and be like, I don't want to do this, right? And like reassess, and
or be like me and get sick for 6 years and not be able to work and still be fine, right? Like I still have money put away.
Exactly. Yeah. So I stepped out, and then my buddy Steve out of Toronto called me one night, and this was after Keith Wellman invented the VSL, by the way. So I don't know if you remember Keith Wellman back in the day, but
I do remember. I know, but Benson's gonna get mad when he's on my show and I tell him he didn't invent the VSL.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I mean, whatever. That can be argued, right?
No, I'm sure. I'm sure. Like no one person invented the wheel either, right? Like plenty of people were gonna think apply direct marketing to video at some point, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was gonna happen. It doesn't matter, right? But Keith Wellman, in my book, invented the VSL because that was the first person I saw do the VSL, right?
Yeah.
Maybe somebody else did it. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I know because I know when Keith did it, right? When Keith did it, Chris McNeely, and Alex Gold and Saj P and all these guys were like doing these like ClickBank offers. So it was like $37 book, whatever, these stupid like, butthole crusher, whatever, right? And then we knew what the EPC was, right? And then I know when Wellman came out with that first one, and I remember I still have I have the second VSL saved because it's like I wanted to own a piece of history. So I found it and saved it on my computer, right? And I can show it to you.
Yeah.
But the first one is like his opening on the VSL was like here in my garage. No, sorry, here in my car. And like how he slept in a car and he couldn't remember that one. That was, I don't know if you remember that.
I think I do. It was a long time ago, but I think I do.
That was the first one, right? And so he
might have really starting from that like pacing, just like starting from that place of being really low. He's not a successful guy. He's in the worst place in his life. He is like basically. I always say when I'm writing stories like this, I'm just like you, but worse. Right. It's not. I'm not just not able to like save money. I'm living in my car and have one arm that fell off last night and whatever else.
Right.
But now I've made all this money.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So we were friends with Keith and like it was great, right? Like Keith did a good job. And he did a second one. And then Steve is also friends with Keith. So Steve calls me literally. He's like, dude, Keith has this new thing. And it's like fucking, cause Steve mailed his list to it.
Yep.
Made like 30 grand with an email. Right.
Damn, dude.
And Steve was like, I got to get one. Right. Make me an offer. So I was like, we were friends. Right. I was like, all right. He's like, what's the name? I'm like, Commission Cloner. Because he was into affiliate marketing. Boom. Right. Because I'm always really good at coming up with names. And so Commission Cloner. And he's like, can you write it for me? I'm like, sure. So literally it took me 35 minutes, 40 minutes to write it. But when I was writing it, what happened was that hero's journey class I took, I was like, I'm going to use a hero's because I didn't have a fucking architecture. Because the big scare back then, right? The big scare of video for all of us we were these like hermit introverts, right? That came from nothing. And the big scare was like, fuck, I got to get on video. How is this going to work? Right. So that was a big scare for all of us was like, it's like, are people going to like me?
It's also putting your face out there, right? Like when I did the Michael Fiore stuff, all of a sudden I was like famous to a lot of people.
Right. Yeah.
And that was fucking weird. Like all of a sudden you're getting people coming at you. People think you're people really, I don't know if it's just a human evolution thing, but we see somebody on camera or we see them on stage. All of a sudden we cannot think of them as regular human beings anymore.
Right. Yeah. So I wrote that offer, right? And then Steve at the time was like, because I took that from the membership side, like we put upsells, right? Yep. But then we did something differently. We're like, let's delay the button. Let's delay. So we were the first to delay the button on the upsells, right?
What was that conversation? So you're sitting there and you're like, well, why?
Just like this, bro, on Skype.
To do this? Yeah, you're on Skype and you're just like, let's try this, basically.
Yeah, because like what happened with me is like, I love marketing and like I would say like most of my conversations, if not all of my conversation with people are in one shape or form related to this thing, right?
Yeah, so marketing, it's like, persuasion, that kind of thing.
I don't talk about much else with people. So it's kind of like, this is my passion and obsession and life. And like, this is my identity. And so I like, literally, like I have, people when I drive, I call people, we talk earlier, me and Eric Jacinto were on the phone.
Oh yeah. Eric. I haven't seen him in ages.
Yeah. Fucking awesome guy. Yeah. So we were talking about marketing and then like, my other buddy, Nick, called me and we were just talking. It's like, we just not all day. I'll talk. So at the time that was it. We just talk all the time. Right. So let's fucking delay it. Right. And so, because the question was like, the one thing we did with the VSL too was like delaying it because like with Wellman's thing, people knew that it was sell something. So they will go to the checkout page. So we're like, if we hide it, they won't think, because what happened was before that VSL, we were really heavy into CPA marketing. So for those of you that don't know, CPA means cost per action, right? And back then you had these like companies like Cash for Gold, whatever. And what they would do is they would pay you like $12 for a free sign up, right? So we're making shit ton of money off of that, right? Really heavy. And we knew, so a lot of people were running like vlogs, and a vlogs is like a fake blog, right? With like, mom loses a lot of weight,
well, it's like a testimonial type blog, but it's completely fake, made up by somebody, some writer.
Right. So when we were all running that, I had the idea. I was like, well, where do we borrow trust? And I was like, let's make a site that looks just like New York Times, right? And we did. So I was the first one to the New York Times site, fucking buku money, right? Made a ton of money off that. And like, so we knew, right? And so we took the same principles again. Like I teach, like in my stuff that I teach principles. Like I've got away from teaching systems, processes, whatever. So I teach people how to think. Like that's kind of my you know, like everybody has a positioning in the space, right? So mine is like, I teach you to think so you can connect the dots and build your own shit.
It's a similar thing to what I do in the copy thing, where I'm like, hey man, I'll teach you how to write stories, but I'm also going to teach you how I look at people more than anything else. Like,
exactly.
That's what makes me good at what I do, is seeing people differently than most people do.
Exactly. Yeah. Depth of vision. That's what's called, depth of vision. Yeah. You have that. Yep. So wrote that, go to sleep, right? Go to sleep, wake up. And it's like, you know, wake up and I think there's like iPhone 2 was out or something. Didn't have.
Totally, yeah.
Go on computer, Skype messages. Steve's like, fucking dude, made like $40,000 off of overnight. Oh my fucking God. Like
a lot better than $6 an hour, huh? Yeah.
Steve made it, not me. Made no money. I wrote that as a gift, as a friend, right? Gift, right? And so I wrote it. He made crazy money. I think he made like $1 million off that.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. Back then, $1 million is good.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I got it. I had the formula. I had the fucking formula, right? Hero's Journey formula, VSLs. Called Jay, my buddy Jay Diebold. He's in Vegas, hungover. You know Jay, right?
I do.
Do you have anything to sell?
The three of us worked on an offer together years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
No, that offer is why I stopped.
You got started. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why I stopped being a freelancer, because you guys made so much fucking money. I remember being on the phone with you and Jay, and you already had the idea, the letter done, and then I wrote it, and we got on, and this was my first. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know, it's a funny story, because like I used to you know, what most people don't know in this industry, when you first, you know, make a bunch of money, and then it's like you tend to drink a lot, or some people do drugs.
Something goes wrong. Yeah, something goes back.
I was the drinking type, right? So like that offer, I was drunk. So I remember walking in my place drunk, right? Because I used to day drink. Yeah, and like Jay, we're calling, like I was like, here's your offer, and then like that. We'll talk about it in a second. So anyway, so I called Jay, right? Jay's in Vegas, hungover. I'm like, do you have anything we can fucking sell? Do you have anything we can sell? So he's like, yeah, I got this SEO thing, whatever. So he did some shit called Google Slapper back in the day, right? Yeah. And I was like, does it work? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm like, I'm going to write this thing. And here's what Steve did. And because actually Steve got Jay into marketing, by the way. Like Jay bought Steve's product, and that's how Jay got into it. And yeah. And so because I think Steve mentored Jay early on, and then Jay became a monster in its own right, like fucking one of the best marketers in the world.
Amazing stuff these days, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so I wrote the thing. Jay recorded it, and like at the time we didn't know, but like it was like, you know, right now what you do is, when you do it, is like you read the copy into GarageBand, and you have a PowerPoint, and then you play it,
all them together. Yeah,
you play it, you record a whole screen while the audio is playing the computer part, and then you sync it. We didn't know that, so it was like back then it was like trying to search for the next fuck is all fucked up, right?
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, so me and Jay do it, and we were like, we didn't have the price. It was like one module was done, right? One module done, and like we made like I think like.
So one module of the product was done, but you already had the entire sales funnel put together?
Yeah, I just built a whole thing. Same architecture as Steve's, Hero's Journey, structure, everything. And so I think we made like 800 grand or something in like a week or two or whatever. And like one module was done, right? So it's like, what do we do now? It's like, we have to fulfill on it, right? But that was like launch. So it was peak. Always. Then I called Melford down in Florida, my buddy Melford, and I was like, and the offer was called Instant Income Code or Instant Income Site. Because I think we had Instant Income Site and we got, or Code, or one of them, and then we got a cease and desist because somebody had the fucking book and like they trademarked it. So so we had to change it.
With alliteration like that, somebody's gonna have thought of it before.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So called Melford, and then it was like, do you have anything you can sell? He was like, yeah. I'm like, shit. All right, flight to Florida. Flew to Florida in his house, straight up, banged out the whole VSL and offer in like 2 hours. Melford, like I was trying to coach Melford on actually like reading the VSL and everything, and yeah, man, he just took that fucking copy and he fucking crushed it. Like I've never seen somebody just like have that presence in a reading. Crushed it.
Did he have like an acting background at all, or was he just naturally good at?
Just naturally great on stage. Just has a lot of presence.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's an 80s get rich quick baby, and those guys they're good at it, right?
Yeah.
So if you want like somebody to publish in BizOp, you go after 80s get rich quick type of people that were involved in MLM or that stuff. They have a lot of presence. They're in front of people.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we did it. We crushed. We made like I think $600,000 to $700,000 like in a few weeks, and like I think it went on. And then I did another one. So I was like, all right, I'm doing one for myself. Then I did another one for myself. Wrote it, made like 1.3 million in like 5 weeks.
Damn, dude.
And then that was crushing it. And then I went to Ryan Dice's mastermind, and at the time, like, you know, everybody was chasing me, like, teach me how this shit works. Cause I was just popping them out, and they were like fucking EPCs. Cause back then, you know, it's like, I have this philosophy. It's like the customer's not yours. It's just your turn to sell to them. Right. And so back then it was like, people would just be like, highest CPC gets the fucking clicks, right? And now it's like, it's like my customer, my baby, it's like Facebook is like slinging them all over.
People are a lot less generous with their traffic these days.
Oh God, yeah. It's a mistake. It's a mistake because I had all the traffic because the show was converting. So Dias, it was Nathan Hopkins actually. Him and Ryan created this thing in Austin where it was like they would like invite all the best marketers and they would share what works, and basically you were given a prize, and I won like everything, right? Like it was like a MacBook Pro, iPad, whatever, right? Because it was like
the Wicked Smart award, I think they call it,
or some shit like that. Yeah, because I invented this thing like on long form sales letters. Like I was the first one to like track intent, like based on where you opt in. So it's like you had a different opt-in page, then we had a different follow-up because they would go deeper into the sales process. So the psychology was different, right?
That makes sense.
So I shared that, like I shared a VSL, whatever. And so remember their launch, they did like Google is broken launch. They did a big launch. So that was like my hook because I came up with the first loophole and glitch, when the era of loopholes and glitch and all that bullshit. Yeah. So I came up with that with the VSL. So I was like,
that was like during the Magic Software era and all that kind of like the Magic
before that.
Yeah. Like as before those words, like I know like loophole eventually got slammed out of ClickBank. A bunch of other ones did as well.
Yeah. So I came up with those first. And like when I was in Dice's thing, I was like, I told them like, there's a certain set of words you use that make people believe that it works, right? And there was like a glitch, loophole, flaw, whatever. So then Dice did like, Google is broken. There's a loophole now, whatever. There's a glitch in Google.
Why do you think psychologically that is? Why do you think that the words like glitch, loophole, backdoor,
shortcut? It's a shortcut.
Yeah.
It's a shortcut. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Human brains. We'll talk about psychology in a second. Sure. So did that, and then what happened was me. I think I don't know. I did some. So. And then Steve came back to me and he was like, I need another offer. So then like, he did Commission Crusher. Jay came to me, and then I did, Matt Marcus and him came to me, and then I built them mobile.
There's Mobile Money Machines was one of them that I wrote for you.
Yeah. No, it was Mobile Blog Money or something like that. And then I came up with Mobile Money Machines. I came up with the architecture, and then you wrote the architecture, and then like we cleaned it up a little bit and then put in the upsell. So that did like, it's funny, man. It's like, I remember being in Starbucks here, like I'm in Charlotte. There's this thing called Matthews here, like it's a small town. And like, I was there with a buddy at Starbucks, like, cause I used to, back in the day, you go to work at coffee shop. So I'm literally at this coffee shop working, right? And a fucking dude's in a MacBook Pro. And I go, I hear the opening of the VSL, right? The VSL, the Mobile Money Machine. VSL.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I see him literally pulling out his fucking wallet, credit card, and buying it. And I'm watching it.
Damn, dude.
And I was like, fucking hell, dude. This is fucking, like, I got chills, dude. Even now,
that's
I
got
chills. He fucking bought it, right? And my other buddy too, I think he saw somebody else buying it because I showed it to him. I was like, this is crazy, right? So I think Jay did like, 13 million on that, whatever. It was good money. That was in the front, by the way. But back then what we did was we sent all the leads to Utah. So they probably did like $80 million and like nobody got it because, the Mormons got their cut. Yeah. So
also the refund rates on those kind of things are just insane, right? I remember like for a lot of that 30. ClickBank stuff, it was pretty damn high. Yeah, pretty damn high.
Yeah, unfortunately. And then the ClickBank fees, and then you got to pay taxes on it, and then it sucks, So and then so we did that, and then but here's the thing: what I never really told anybody with those offers that we did with Melford, Jay and Steve and mine, those high ticket offers, like we were getting like $40, $50 EPCs, right? I mean, it was fucking nuts. But here's the kicker: we never paid any affiliates in the upsells. We only paid 50% of the front end. And we fucking cleaned up because we never paid the upsell pad ever. Like that was our money, and
nobody even thought to ask for it back then because it was earlier on, and they were still doing pretty well on the front end stuff, so it worked out fine for them.
Yeah, we're making a killing on the front. So anyway, so that what happened, and then I think we did a mobile, and then I think me and Matt Basek, we did me and Matt we were talking, and I was like, all right, I want to break ClickBank, and so I did a bunch of those ClickBank offers, and then we did mobile. Mass money makers. That was the offer. Yeah. So I did that one, and then we crushed it. Like we are the only people ever to hit like 2,200 gravity. Like I think we did like 20,000 customers the first 5 days or something.
Oh my God, crazy.
Yeah, we killed it, right? And then at the time, we sent all the leads to Ivy Capital, right? And Ivy Capital got clipped by FTC like 2 weeks after we launched.
So what did Ivy Capital do? Why were you sending leads over them? What were they doing with them?
Well, back then, like we didn't have coaching, right? We weren't doing coaching, wasn't a thing, right? Well, I'll actually talk about that. So it's like coaching wasn't a thing, and so there was these floors that would do it. But the back history of coaching that nobody knows in this industry is that you know, there was this company that was for, what was it? Timeshares, right? And then Basek, this lady went to selling real estate training, and then basically Basek worked for her while he was in college. Matt Basek, by the way, one of the best marketers and fucking like.
Yeah, I know. I've known Matt for a long time.
Jesus Christ, man. I don't know.
But I gotta say, Matt, freaking Matt, when I met him years and years ago, I met him at a bar at maybe Jeff Walker's event or something like that.
Yeah.
He gives me his card. I give him my card. We chat as friends and peers for a minute. And then the next thing I know, I'm on his fucking pitch email list, right? I'm just getting like pitch after pitch. I try to get off. I'm back on it again. I'm like, come on, dude. What are you doing?
Yeah, he's like, I remember when he came into the market and it was just like this fucking like, 800-pound gorilla, just like fucking everything up, man. Like I've never seen like a force like that enter a market. Like there was a guy that didn't exist. And then it's like every webinar, every teleseminar back then, everywhere you go, he was everywhere. Like he would just, and he was like, how 50 Cent came out, like out of New York, like that wave, that was massive, Basek, right? So Basek ran, he created a free CD formula using the model because he worked for the real estate people, because they would give away free stuff, put them in there. So the free CD formula put people on. Basek back then did like 30-40 mil a year, which is like nuts compared to today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And so basically I think like Brunson modeled like a lot of shit from him, and like a lot of people did. And so Kevin Nations worked with Matt, right? And then Kevin Nations learned a phenomenal fucking, one of the smartest minds in our industry, right?
Kevin's amazing. I'm going to have Kevin on at some point as well.
Huge respect. Yeah, huge respect. So Kevin took stuff from there and like built on it, right? Again, it's like, this is progressive knowledge, not regressive, right?
Yeah.
And then out of that, I think Sam Ovens learned from Kevin Nations, and then Sam Ovens taught all these other people, right? But nobody knows this timeline of where the hell it came from, right?
Yeah.
So Matt Basek was basically the reason coaching industry in this, I mean, I'm sure it would have been found out one way or another, but he's a big reason. And, like one of the things, like when we do the NHB event, we're planning it, it's like, I want to have these like OGs come and share shit. Cause dude, like when I talk to Matt, like he'll go like, he'll just start to riff, and I'm like, holy fuck, man, this is like brilliance, right? Brilliant. So anyway, me and Matt did that fucking launch. We made a shit ton of money. And then like, it became a headache, running these big teams. I mean, in this industry, it's like, everybody has the same arc. It's like you start off here and then you go here, you build a big team, and you're like, it gets like to the point where like after I think 2 to 3 million a year, like for you to double it, you got to like triple your team or quadruple it.
Yep.
And then it's like, I don't want the stress. And then
like your gross versus net gets all turned inside out too.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And you have to deal with stress, and they unionize, they unionize against you.
Yeah. I remember talking to Vishen Lakiani about this years and years ago, and we were comparing numbers on our businesses, and I had made more. He had 100 employees. I had 3, and I had made like 40% more than he had the year before.
Exactly. That's all that matters, dude. Yeah, exactly. So I think Basek got out of the call floor and everything because of that. Because it's like, he was telling me how like at certain size they unionize, right? They're like literally like demand shit. And so it's like, I'm not dealing with this. So he did the whole.
They also seem to get this ownership feeling. Like I had one employee in particular who really started to believe it was their business. Like really internally, and really thought that they deserved for me to like give them like half the business basically.
Yeah,
like, you don't have a job anymore. I'm sorry, we're not doing that.
Yeah, no, that's really hard. Yeah, that's a really hard boundary to and it's kind of like tough because like you care about these people, but at the same time, it's like, it is business. So it took me years to actually learn how to create boundaries like that. And so, Basek did, what the hell did he do? Yeah. So he did that. And so it was like, I think he's like 3-person team, and it's like a 3-person team, you can be at like 300-400 grand a month, and it's good. Right. And beyond that, it's like stress and everything. Fuck it. So anyway, so they didn't want to do, so we sent the leads to IB Capital on all these floors, right? We sent the leads, and so the leads got sent over, and they would pay us like $80 to $100 DPL like per lead, and God knows what they made. We don't fucking know, right?
Probably a hell of a lot more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, we talked about the problems, pornography and more, and there also comes problems with, because whenever you have porn, you have drugs, right? So some of those sales guys started doing a lot of coke and shit, right? And like when people have those bad, addictions, then they make all sorts of claims for those commission checks. So they started
total. So yeah, they'll do anything for the sale at that point.
Yeah.
The incentive.
Yeah, exactly. And so one of the other things that I noticed, like a lot of these floors did, they would open the floor purposely next to strip clubs. And so what happens, like when their guys get paid, they go to the strip club, spend it all, gotta get back and fucking sell. And so strip clubs, coke, strip clubs, coke, and floors, bad combination. So that's what same thing happened to Ted from the Tax Club. Like he did like 3 billion, 2 guys, drug habit, claims, everything's gone, right?
Cocaine will fuck up your life, man. I've never tried cocaine because with my bipolar and my
I'm afraid of that shit.
It's a bad idea. I'm never gonna touch it.
Yeah. I'm a caffeine type of dude. I never try anything harder. Like I have a very addictive personality. Like if I tried coke, I'd be like, I would turn to a drug lord. I'm like, I'm afraid of it.
Any kind of, so when you got rich, right? So you went from making, just to move back to something that I always want to ask people about this particular question. When you went from making like $6 an hour to, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, and all of a sudden you were richer than 99.9% of people around there. Did that fuck you up? Did that mess up your?
That's a great question. That's a great lesson.
Because it fucked me up. I'll tell you that. What was that experience? Especially because you were so young when that happened. What was that experience like?
Well, the first thing that happened was like, okay, so at the time, like, I had this Honda Civic, right? My dad bought me like a cheap $12,000 Honda Civic, right? And like, I'm making, I have all this money, right? And I'm driving Honda Civic, go to Vegas, and Mark Jenny was there, right? Mark, fucking, it's funny, one of the greatest marketers ever. Like, I love to give respect to these guys that like really fucking, not many people know about them, but they're like anything Mark touches literally will turn to fucking gold.
Mark is a very, very smart. He's one of the quiet giants, right, man? Like,
oh my God, dude, he can turn anything and it'll fucking crush. That guy is like different type of brain, right?
He's a funny dude. He's a smart dude. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I mean, he's been doing shit like innovating, pushing the limits back like from long time, right? Anyway, so so we're in Vegas and like I'm driving this Honda Civic, right? All this money, and it's like fucking one of my cousins was with me, right? And he's like, Mark's telling this story about he bought a Lambo, let a friend borrow it, hit it into a fucking pole, right?
Oh no.
So he's like, oh, Alen drives a Honda Civic, right? And I was like, oh, ego, right? I was like, I felt embarrassed, right? I felt so embarrassed, like I'm a piece of shit, because it's like, you come out of nothing.
Yeah, totally.
Like, fuck this guy, I'll show them, go back and buy like 3 cars cash, like fucking like, expensive ass cars. Like, and I was like, and I remember like going to a fucking dealership. Like at the time, one of the cars I bought was like a GTR, right? And like I show up and they're like, I'm like, I want to test drive it. And like, they're like, no. And I'm like, what? How do you expect me to buy it if I drive it? So I drove it to the bank, got a check for it. Exactly. I was like, here, it's mine.
So you drove the car you were buying to the bank to get the check to buy the car?
Yeah. And I just gave it to him. It's mine. Awesome. The guy shit himself. Yeah. And then like a week, and then it was like, the thing was like piece of shit. It was uncomfortable because, so people were like, damn, dude, you bought this car to be a daily driver. I'm like, yeah. And it's like horrible. So I went and bought like another one and didn't like that, been another one. So I just that. And then like was like, so here's the kicker that happened to me. I don't know if that happened to you, but what happened is like, for me, it's like, I tried to bring up all my friends around me. Right?
Oh yeah.
That was this happens a lot. So
everybody
it's like,
does this. Yeah.
Yeah. So and rappers do this and everybody, right? So all these people around us are like broke, right?
Yep.
And you're making money. So it's like, go to the club, cause I remember back then, dude, like when me and Basak did that launch, me, him, Sean Casey, and
Sean. Wow. I haven't heard his name in years.
Fuck is his name? Blake. Damn it. I can't remember.
I don't know either.
Last name Blake, long hair, had that picture. Like him and Sean Casey are still partners today. We had this thing where we were like, we had a co-op, right? Because at the time I was the first to start trading email lists, by the way. So I don't know if you know that, like, but on ClickBank, I was like, I have this email list. We're making a lot of money. Let's just fucking swap. So I started trading we started trading with everybody. So I had like the biggest email list. I had the second biggest account on iContact at the time. Huge, right? And
how many names about? Just to give a ballpark.
I have no idea. Millions.
Yeah.
Like I had the whole industry in my list.
I know Basic's list was like 2 million at one point. I don't know what it's at now, but he was sending a lot of mails for a long time.
Yeah. So we did list swaps, and so iContact was looking to be sold. And so they let us get away with a lot of shit, right? They didn't care as long as we justified it. Yeah. And so we would, hit offers but me, Basak, Sean, and Blake were, we were in a co-op where we would buy, because at the time, we talk about CPA offers, people were generating all these leads, and we would buy a lot of data. And so we would pay a quarter for a lead, and then we would round robin post. So it's like Basak would get the first one, Sean would get the next one, I get the next one, Blake, and then it would then when they were done after like a week, I would get their lead, and we just did this, just like on the lead. So we bought a lot of leads. Yeah. Yeah. So there was this thing called analytic approach. We would put the buy leads into analytic approach, and then we would basically move the openers and clickers to like iContact with software using clicks and shit. So we were like, that's how we were dominating ClickBank back in the day. So everybody thought it was like, how the fuck are these guys always like top 3, top 4, right? Yeah. That's how we were doing it. And so we did that. And what the hell did we get here? We
started off by talking about did making all that money fuck you up?
Oh yeah.
Going from minimum wage to that. You said you bought cars,
right,
much like
right.
Perry Belcher. He told me he bought the cars he liked in every color when he first started making a lot of money. Mm-hmm. He was just like, I want to drive a blue one today.
Yeah, no, I didn't care about the color. But so what happened was like with that email shit, like, we were making like 10, 15 grand a day, right? You just literally send an email, you do 2 emails a day.
Yep.
And I remember like, being in clubs, right? And like, I would just go like, you get the whole section, VIP section, bottles and shit. And you're just like this, crap. And you're like, yeah, like 10 grand came in, fuck it, all good, right?
Yep.
So it was like nonstop party, right? And so I tried to get everybody around me into this shit, like teach them, bring them up. And when I couldn't, I started to self-destruct and bring myself down.
Because you wanted to still be able to hang out with your friends, was
right?
That the idea?
Exactly. So I started spending.
Total sense.
Yeah. So I started spending a lot on stupid shit, right? And so like, you spend it, you kind of lose this love for money, right? And there's this book, I have it over here. It's called How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis, right?
Oh, I love that book. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I read it a bunch of times. Yeah. So Felix talks about, acting big and acting big, thinking small.
Yep.
So what happens in this industry with us, it's like we all start off acting acting small because we can't afford to think big and show off, right? Yep. And so what happens in that changeover, it's like when we acquire a lot of money, we buy shit, then we start to act big. But it's the silent changeover that takes place where it's like now you're, instead of playing offense to go get whatever you want, you start to play defense, where it's like you keep what you can keep, right?
Yeah.
And that happened to me. And so instead of like
more of like, this is basic human psychology, but we are more motivated to keep what we have than we are to get more of anything, right?
Exactly.
Like study after study on that. Yeah.
Right. So that's what happened. So we basically was like, it started acting big, thinking small. And I've seen this happening even today, right? So a buddy of mine just bought like a good copywriter. He just bought like a car for like 180 grand or something, right? Jesus, and like he went from like cherry picking, he had this confidence, right? I'm cherry picking projects, doing whatever.
Yep.
And as soon as he bought the car, I could see it, like the confidence has shifted. It goes, pff, now it's like playing defense. And I see that happening a lot of people, right? Especially it's because they go from crushing it, thinking big, acting small, to acting big, thinking small, right?
Yeah.
So, and then they play defensive, like, and then other guys are like, that's why newcomers kick their ass, right?
Yep.
So for me, on the second go round of getting, as you call it, getting rich, I'm like, I'm not going to buy shit, nothing. And it's like, it's like you could, but it's like, I know the novelty wears off. So I buy nothing. Like I buy nothing because I know
it doesn't make any, I live a very similar life, right? Like I have a nice house, but otherwise I drive a 6-year-old Subaru with 11,000 miles on it. I don't have the big watches. I don't talk to anybody about being successful in business who is not in the business or is my wife, basically, right? Because I'm just like my regular friends. I don't want to kind of deal with that shit. Let's keep it a little bit more normal. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So for me, it's like I made a conscious decision. Like, okay, I'm gonna just not buy anything, literally nothing, and I want to see this experiment, how long it goes, right? So the option's there to buy whatever I want, but it's like there's a lot of power in like thinking big and acting small, right? So that's my whole play. It's like, and because the thing is, what also happens in this industry a lot is like people develop an image when they buy shit. Now it's like, you're the guy that has this, and this, and this. Yep. And if you lose this and this and this, and then it's like, oh, you ain't shit. You were a fraud. You're fake, right? And so people collapse, right? So
it becomes your identity, right? For me, like when I got so sick, I went from making several $1 million a year to making like $750,000 a year, which is still really good money. And I wasn't even really working, right? I was just because I was so sick. But my identity had been so attached to making a certain amount of money that I actually got super duper fucking depressed for a while because I was like, I'm not that guy anymore because I'm not performing at that level.
Absolutely, yeah. So after the basic thingy, and that thing, like, we got really close. There was a close scare, right, with the old FTC thing, because like the industry started. And so then I was like, fuck, man, it's like, I'm going to get in trouble with this shit. Cause it's like anything I touch makes a lot of money. Even to this day, like any offer I touch, literally.
No, you're pretty fucking damn good at what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, makes a lot of money. So it's like, at the time I was like afraid to touch things myself. So I started doing offers like, through proxy, right? So I did like, I had 22 number ones on ClickBank and BizOp. And I just like shit them up. And then after that, there was a changeover. Remember when people, when Ronnie came in. So Ronnie, I'm not gonna mention his last name, I respect, but he was really big. He was one of the biggest affiliates in casinos, right? And casinos got banned. And he was like, I want to transplant this model. And so he discovered binary options, and he brought binary options to that crowd. And so like I was talking to Matt Marcus.
What is a binary option? Is for folks who are listening.
Yeah. So there was this model that came up where it's like, these Israeli floors these called binary options. And so it's like either you bet on a stock, it's going to go up or down. You don't bet how much, it's up and down, right? That's all you bet, up and down is gambling. So what these floors did was they built these software where it's like the whole thing was like you deposit $200 and then it's like it goes up and down. But what at first it was legit, and then the shady ones would rig the software that it would go up. And then people would go like, oh, you made this much money, you know, you made $5,000. Would you like? And so they got people to invest their 401ks, social securities, everything, right?
Oh man.
Yeah, it was dirty. And so that's when that started happening on ClickBank. And so Matt Marcus, who worked with Jay, so Matt's like a monster at the stock stuff. He's like, don't touch that shit. Don't fucking touch it. He's like, don't touch it. Don't mail it. Don't touch it. Don't just stay away from it. I'm like, why? He's like, sec.gov, people go to jail. FTC, people get taken shit away. So I'm like, fuck it, right? So everybody moved in. So then I had an ethical decision to make, right? And the decision was basically like, do I want to compete with liars, right?
Yeah.
Oh, before that, I forgot the story before that. Like after Black Hat Insider, I started a supplement company. Completely forgot about that, right? So I started a supplement company, free trial. So I did supplements in 2007, 8, 9.
Yeah.
I did a lot with that. And like, I remember getting like CPAs of like, you know, $9 on Google or some shit like that.
Damn,
like
dude.
we did a lot with supplements. And so, so we did a lot with that. And then again, that industry too, like went through that thing of free trials and then went to shit, you know, got destroyed. So I have this whole principle here called breaking models, right? So I've seen these change cycles happen a lot. And it's like whoever breaks the model first makes the most amount of money, right? So in the supplement space, like Jesse Williams broke that model. Like he had like 20 offers doing that shit and like broke the model. He made the most amount of money, right? And so whenever
by that you mean he took the model, blew it up so much, was so successful with it that anybody else coming afterwards just was not going to be able to achieve that because the model had already been kind of worn out a little bit, basically at that point.
Yeah. So like if you imagine, I actually was at an event years ago, and there was this there's this guy who was talking about like ecosystems, and he said like imagine like every ecosystem compares a certain amount of predators and prey, right?
Yeah.
It's like a glass table, and like you can put stuff on it, and then eventually when you put like an ounce, it just breaks, right? And so breaking the model means like whoever takes the model, and this is where I developed the the strategy of competing on economics, right? Which we'll talk about in a second. And you know, because like with Jesse, like, so there's like few guys that I think are like GOAT, like monsters, like Mark Jenny, Matt Basak, Jesse Williams. These guys are, you know, some of the best marketers in the world. Most people don't know, right? And like I think Matt Argall is on that list. And these guys move a lot of fucking volume, right? The most like, because marketers we're good at taking credit, but most marketers aren't good at doing this shit, right? So anyway, so Jesse, you know, like we were using the same warehouse and like fucking moving like 285,000 units a month, doing like 800,000 a day.
Damn, dude.
And with like no sales copy. And I was like, oh shit. So anyway, years later. So anyway, I should do a fucking post and nothing back and start a supplement company, because I can start going for like $1,000, dude. It's so easy.
I think you definitely. I mean, by the way, for folks who are listening, if you're not in Alan's group, the Nothing Held Back group, it is a really, really amazing.
It's the best.
People, I mean, the things that you post, I think, are definitely worth what other people charge for courses. Actually, they're better than what a lot of people charge for courses and whatnot. So I've learned a lot just going in that group, and I know a lot of people have too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And so, so in the ClickBank time, it was like the idea is like, do I want to compete with liars or no, right? And I was like, no, you know, it's like, I don't want to compete with liars. So I left, and like that whole thing went to hell. And then when they moved on to ClickSure, and then ClickSure kicked them, and they move on to I don't know, like some weird Chinese processing bullshit, whatever. They're hopping all over that place. And like a lot of them actually went to jail, the binary guys. So Mark, like, they went after him hard, took all their shit. I mean, rightfully so.
No,
right?
I mean, you break the law, you break the rules. And
so like a lot of people, like, you know, bitch about the FTC, but I think they're needed. Like, I think they're really needed because they keep the balance, because people, you know, human nature and greed, a lot of these guys in this industry will like, you know, Chris, the biggest skill in this industry is like, well, the biggest skill is like, if you have restraint, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing. It's like, what's the number one skill? Restraint. Just because you can go sell shit, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you could, like, I mean, I ran Nothing Held Back a year, right? I didn't ask for $1, and that's restraint.
Amazing. Yeah.
A lot of people, like, I saw a few dudes like kind of try to copy that thing, and they did, and it's like literally 200 members are like, membership site, buy up, and it's like, wow, okay, idiot.
I mean, you were at 7,000 before you pitched. I mean, I didn't even know you were.
I didn't pitch.
Yeah.
I didn't pitch.
I heard about it from Samantha Novak, who's one of my students as well.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, have you seen this? I'm like, I totally missed it, actually.
Yeah, no, I didn't pitch. I just people that know got into the Fast Forward program, and that was it. I don't think I'm gonna pitch it, actually. It's funny because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip it, and instead of pitching it, I'm gonna make it so that they have to apply to get in instead of they can just get in. So because I want to keep the integrity of the group. Yeah, we have like 165 people.
Awesome.
Like some of them do like up to 80 mil. We got like Dan Reutman, which is another fucking OG in there. Like
Dan's an old client of mine, man. I did the
Pimsleur approach. You did that. How can kids learn English? So that was your hook,
right?
I
did that letter, and I took his letter. I took his letter and I rewrote it, made it much more. I made it about a woman who wanted to go to France and find romance, as opposed to whatever else it was. Right? It was about a woman who, like, she could never learn French when she was in high school. Her teacher made her feel bad. She's always wanted to. She has the vacation, and of course, she goes off and meets this amazing Frenchman.
Wow!
And that increased conversions by 30% or something like that, and he was never able to beat it for 10 fucking years.
Yeah, Dan's one of that. Like, I hung out with him down in Florida recently. He's like one of the smartest, most generous, greatest guys.
I'll have him on the show at some point too. He's
fucking fantastic. Yeah, so he's in there. We have a lot of great people. But anyway, fuck that. Like, I'm not gonna pitch it here. Like, I don't want to pitch it. So
you don't need to pitch it here. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. So so it's restraint, right? And so I retired for 2 years, like went mountain biking, road biking, all that shit. Then I built an ad network called ClickDrop. We had like 8,000 businesses use it. It was like email, email drops, did that.
Yep.
Sold it. Took the money, built this thing called Real CRM, which was like Shopify and Fusion. Got to the end of that road and was like, fuck.
Out of curiosity, what kind of hours do you work? I mean, I know you enjoy the work. What's that?
All of them.
So you're just, for me, it's like I work like 4 to 5 hours a day and then I'm off. I'm just like,
yeah. I learn a lot, right? So if you consider like learning and working, then all the time. If it's like, if it's not learning, then it's like, I don't know, right? But I'm nonstop involved one way or another. So did Real CRM, got to the end, had to do PCI compliance. That's like, you have to pay $250,000 for somebody to come in and audit your servers and shit to make sure, because a lot of that credit card hacks. And then I pedaled it over into Brand Boost, this other SaaS I started. And then I was like, fuck this. I'm like, I want to go back to the office. I'm really good at that, right? Like, I don't want to manage people. So got back but at the time I was also running webinars from 2014, 2018. So we were crushing it with webinars, doing really well. I was just traveling around the world. And I had a different last name on Facebook. I didn't have Instagram. And I didn't really socialize with anybody. Like I kept in touch with Jay, Eric. Maybe you and I chatted once in a while on Skype, and like there was a handful of guys. Yeah, that's it. I didn't talk to anybody. I was just doing my thing, innovating stuff. And that's when I came up with a lot of these concepts, like, competing on economics and and all this stuff. And it's like, then 2018, like I came back, did a little bit of consulting here and there, and then met Robert, and he was like, I told him that Jay was like, selling ungodly amount of books. So he wrote a book called To Our Agency. He did organic launch, did like $6,000 first day. And then I was like, all right, give me this shit. And I blew it up to like, I rebuilt it. We did like, I think it was like ad spend $15,000 a day within 2 weeks. And like, I just kept fucking crushing it, and did more. But yeah, built a lot of offers, man, like throughout my time, and like helped a lot of people. And so I learned a lot. And so, yeah, I mean, now we can talk about like, so I started with copy. And then back in 2008, whatever, when I was competing with Jesse, like, CPA offers were these like little ass forms.
Yeah.
They were like just a product, and it was like they paid, right? They paid a lot of money, and they were beating us. Like,
so that was basically just like CPA, like the affiliates would just push the traffic to a really basic page with like, do you want to buy this product or not? No real copy, no real hook, no nothing. Just like, here's the bottle, here's the ingredients, and here's some basic benefit copy more than anything else, right?
Well, it was actually like a legally strategic split, because like what happened was, like at the time, like there was no law of who was liable, right? So they put the flogs in advertorials beforehand, so then affiliates would be liable, the owners weren't liable. So
that makes sense. Yeah,
they would split it. So that's, but anyway, whatever. Like I was like, well, shit, look at this, and I started thinking to myself, I'm like, I got really good with copy. Like, like I can like fucking write copy.
No, you're really fucking good at copy. Yeah,
monster. Like I can bang a letter out without any research, anything. Right? I did it from people.
I'd say besides me, I mean, you're probably even faster than I am, and I write really fucking fast. So
how long does it take you to write a letter?
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours, generally speaking.
Yeah. Just like sit down and bang it out.
I mean, as long as it's something that I know, like as long as it's a niche I know and I find it interesting or whatever else, then I can just crank it out.
Yeah.
My best is I did like a 10,000 word letter in 2 hours, I think.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
I did an offer for Caitlin V and Joshua the other week. Like I helped them out and I mentored them, and like I banged it in like 30 minutes, and it's like a 3.2% conversion rate. At $250 a month membership. It was pretty good.
That's fucking awesome, dude. Good work.
But what I did was different. I captured her voice, right? Like I captured who she was, her essence. So when she read it, it was very congruent. Because like what I do when I write copy, I have the people read it, right? And so like when I wrote the 2 Hour Agency stuff, I had Robert read the upsells, and he's reading them just like this on Zoom, and he's like, it's like the shit won't come out.
Oh, he's tripping over his tongue or something like that.
That's not you. I'm like, how would you say it, Robert? He's like, well, I would say it like this. I'm like, let's change it. It's okay. And then we changed it. And then when it came out, it's like, that's you.
Because then it feels natural. It feels genuine. It feels like
exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's your words. Yeah.
So that's the same thing I did with Caitlin, right? And like we just did this morning for Scott Phillips. I wrote like with Grant their new book a call video for their new crypto offer, right? And it was the same thing. So it's like I write it and then it's like, fill this in, Scott, and then we do a second draft and it's like we clean it up and it's like now read it in your voice and it comes out perfect, right?
Yep.
So anyway, so I did that. But then I realized, like, it's like I started thinking, I'm like, fuck, man, it's like 99% of the world's commerce doesn't operate on copy.
True. Yeah.
And then I saw this one flip with Russell Brand where he said years ago, it's like, how do you know a product shit? And it's like, it needs advertising to sell. And I go, oh, that stung, right? So it's big pages of stuff. And then after that, I started like thinking like multi-dimensionally, right? Like about sales processes, sales systems, human psychology and everything. And just things just started to click. And, things just started to click. And I was like, okay, then it's like I started competing on economics, right? Because words can only do so much, right? Because the way people read words.
What do you mean by competing on, just to define that? What do you mean by competing on economics?
There's only two things when it comes down to it. It's like psychology and math, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And so like psychology is the words, right? But the problem with the words is that words are a tertiary or secondary form of communication. So it's like, if I read something, it has to go through the eye, in the brain, form pictures, then go into the body, form feelings, come back, and then action, right? And so words are linked to past experiences. Since we all have different experiences, the experience of a sales letter or a VSL ends up being very subjective instead of objective, right? Mm-hmm. And so everybody has a different experience. This is why, 3% conversion tops, right? 4 or 5 if you're really narrow, right?
Really, really good, yeah.
And then like if you look at the stats, you have this drop off on a VSL, right? And then so it's like you have really at the end of the eyeball to the CTA, you have 3, 5, 10 people that you paid. So it's like it's an inefficient model, right? And the thing is, it's like Ron Lynch, who's also absolutely fucking brilliant. Do you know Ron Lynch?
I know Ron, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, but fucking great. Like, his whole thing's about his product being great. And I'm like, absolutely. Because if a product great, sell this stuff. It doesn't need advertising.
But dude, I'm telling you, with the stuff I'm doing now, my pig method stuff and whatever else, it is the easiest thing in the world because my students keep selling it for me to other people.
Exactly. That's exactly. Well, that's one of the strategies I use now. It's always like, how do I take one customer, turn them into 10, right?
Yep.
So, so I started thinking about that and it's like, okay. And then it's like, well, instead of like, let's say you and I compete, let's say you would do an offer, I do an offer and it's like weight loss, right? And I say lose 20 pounds with Hoodia or whatever. And like Akai Berry, you lose 20 pounds, whatever. You tell a story about a chick going to, a movie and being rejected. I tell a story about the guy having whatever. It's like, we're going to like be this.
Roughly the same. Yeah.
You might be better. I might be better. It doesn't matter, right?
Doesn't matter.
Like, we're not going to go double it.
No.
But
not at the level that you and I work at.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But so when it comes to this doubling it of the conversion rate, right? What we really want to double is the money so we can acquire more customers to make more money. Percentages, right? So I go, okay, well, competing on economics, what can I change? Okay, I know that upsells have 100x elasticity, right? So for example, if a product is $1 and for every $1 you get on the back, you can charge up to 100 on the upsell one.
Oh, wow.
Now, and you have elasticity, right? Mm-hmm. Now, how much they'll buy, you got to figure out the equilibrium, right?
Yeah, you work the numbers, you figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have that. So you go, okay, well, I can just change the upsell and now I can increase the AOV. So, because the way I look at it is not conversion rates, it's AOV contributions in the funnel. So it's like, what's the contribution of this? What's the contribution of that? But the thing is like, if something contributes in a funnel, it also can take away. So for example, checkout page optimization is tend to be reductive in nature, removing shit, letting them go through, right? Mm-hmm. And so what most people fuck up is like, I look at a lot of these.
On the page. Yeah.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is like, there's this concept called, cognitive load is increased, like, when it comes to the front end. Like, so for example, adding more shit, you're increasing cognitive load, which affects decision-making. And so by the time you get to the upsell pad, they're burnt out. But if you lower the cognitive load on the front end, and then you increase it in the upsell pad, it's a higher take rate, right?
So let's dig into that a little bit more, because I think it's a difficult thing to explain. So as far as the cognitive load, you mean like on the front end, do you mean as far as the amount of copy or how much you're making them think? Like how are you applying cognitive load on the front end in a way that causes that kind of reaction?
Oh, cognitive fatigue, sorry, not load, cognitive fatigue. There's too much shit. Yeah, so cognitive fatigue. So what happens is like, there's only so many things like, so if you look at timeline of events, if you look at the attention spans, right? So for example, like if you look at your stats, right now it's summer, right? Hard to get people to pay attention because dopamine levels. So I was just tanning before this call, right? And I'm like, I came on, I'm like, fuck, I feel good, right?
Yeah.
You ain't gonna get me to watch a fucking 50-minute VSL. Don't care what it is, right? Yeah. I feel good, sunlight. wintertime, that's why on ClickBank days during wintertime, we would do launches up to May. And then from May to August, whatever, it was be like, we're not doing shit because conversions weren't good.
Yeah, it wasn't worth
when
it.
it's cold, right? When it's cold,
it's like launching right before Christmas. Or actually, I did my launch right before Christmas.
We did too. But generally, mass money makers were Christmas because our whole theory was like, well, we got all their attention. They're all at home, so we did well, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So with the I'll talk about emotional states of markets and shit like that. So, but like when it comes to that, then it's like you having them absorb too many ideas in a VSL, too many concepts, too many stories, too much stuff, right?
Yep.
And so it's like there's too much data in the ecosystem of information. So like there's too much data, like even this podcast VSL is data. They have to listen to this shit, right? Data. Then there's like data on Facebook. There's data on YouTube. There's data everywhere. And so what happens is like when you have a VSL, they have to absorb more data, more concept, right? So right now, when it comes to building offers, what I do is I focus on the philosophy of the offer. And that is the essence of it. Once I get the philosophy, shit's easy, right? So for example, like there's a dating offer that I'm working on with a guy, right? And I consulting, helping him out with, right? One of my mentees, I guess you can call them, or clients, friends, whatever. And for him, I was like, okay, what's the philosophy of this? And he couldn't get it. And I'm like, what's the philosophy of this? And what's the philosophy? And like, once he nailed the philosophy, which was something like people need each other. I can't remember exactly. It was like the whole funnel. It just made sense.
Let's just drill down a bit like what we mean by philosophy. Do you mean, so for instance, like, would that be, for instance, my Text the Romance Back program? Would you say the philosophy is kind of the idea that like the texting is the best way to bring the romance back into your life and with your husband, and here's why, right? Like
exactly. Yeah.
That's the core idea of that particular
philosophy. The philosophy. Yeah. The philosophy. It's something that's going to be like, this is why this is the best, right? That's the philosophy. So when I build offers, like I start out with the philosophy. So most people do mechanisms and shit, big idea. I'm like, no, I do philosophy, right? Because once you get the philosophy, then the upsell architecture writes itself, right? So I had a guy come to me with Alex Jones offer, right? And he was like, we're doing Alex Jones offer. What do we do? What's the upsell? What's it? So I did an architecture, and basically like every market has a different architecture, right? And so for example, the survival space is like, what's going to happen today? Fix it, like save me. And then upsell 1 is like, what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month. And upsell 2 is like, what's going to happen the next year or 5 years.
Makes total sense.
So it's timeline of fear, right? And so the philosophy was like safety.
Timeline of fear is a great term. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway, so I do that. And then, so the philosophy of offers is really important. But now back to the whole thing on competing economics. So what happens is like, I can modulate and add things to increase that AOV contribution, because the only thing that matters is like EPC, earnings per click, being higher than cost per click, right? And once you get those two numbers, you have scale, right? That's it. And you have scale. And so once you have scale, then it's like you can acquire customers. And once you can acquire customers, you can do whatever. But there's this new thing I'm doing right now. It's called scaling in the negative space. And what I do is basically, it's like, the idea is like, if you can acquire this many people at profit, right? And then that means you can acquire this many people at break even, but you can acquire this many people at a loss.
Negative. Yeah.
And then if you want to go bigger loss, you can get more. So the more loss you can have is this, right? So then the question begets is like, how do you scale in the negative space while losing money more effectively, right? And so the way you do it is basically there's 3 types of economics. There's like economics, secret economics, and hidden economics. Like, so like economics is like, front funnel, like the upsell path, whatever, right? Like economics, that's visually seen. Secret economics is back-end deal. So that was like in ClickBank days, our deal with sending leads to floors. Like, so in your case, it might be sending leads to match.com or some shit, like whatever, right? Yeah. And then hidden economics is how you allocate that capital to have human beings create it so it comes forward, right? So for example, I worked with an offer recently, got them to, crazy volume. And like the biggest change was like hidden economics. It's like, okay, we're going to do a high ticket program for like $8,000 a month. And for every $8,000 a month buyer you get, you're going to hire an A player. And so it's like 10 $8,000 customers, 10 A players. 10 A players bring 4 or 5 million a month. You see what I mean?
I think so.
So you're allocating capital, and like most people don't think of capital.
You're allocating the capital as you're growing the business and growing the amount of revenue you're bringing in. You're kind of allocating,
economizing.
We know where that money, this particular money from this particular bucket, is going towards hiring these people.
And these people, then you do it right, and then you hire them, and more people come, and then you cycle it up, whatever. But that's it. So basically, like, copy is great. I think it is a must skill in this game, but also like 99% of the world operates without it. But also like competing economics. So for example, a shitty copywriter, somebody that's really strong in economics will beat the best copywriters.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's like, you don't have to be, you can be like this good at economics game and this big as far as copy, and you'll beat it because your numbers, you'll increase the numbers a lot. And it's a lot easier to, change shit on the page, add like, so for example, like one of the things I'm actually writing a post about, I'm going to post it tomorrow, it's like multimodality upsell. So I had like a web hosting company, right? And so we would do is we would give them a free website as long as they did our web hosting, right? So and in that upsell, we had multimodality upsells. We had a different person do the upsell. So it's like, hey, my name is John. I'm from the, the security department. I want to do it. Hey, my name is Jen. I'm from the design department. Would you like us to do this for you? Hey, my name is da, right? And what that does, it increased the conversion a lot because it was like different people selling it. And I got that from car dealers because I bought a lot of cars in my stupid. So what you do
because you're getting handed off from the salesman to the closer basically once you get
because you hate the sales guy, but you like the manager, and then the manager does the deal. You kind of hate him, but you like the finance guy.
Yeah.
Then it's like you kind of hate the finance guy, but then you like the warranty guy.
It's like a good cop, bad cop kind of. It's like a rolling good cop, bad cop, right? Like everybody becomes the bad cop eventually, but you get a new good cop as you go.
Yeah, but also it breaks the monotony of looking at the same person for like 2 hours, right? Because
one thing on us, like the ads that I was running for Make Him Worship You, the best version of the funnel we had for 2 years basically was my voice on the YouTube ad, and then Kate, the woman's voice on the VSL.
Exactly.
And that did so much better than any kind of congruent version where it was like her in the ad and her on the VSL, or me on the ad and on the VSL.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you do that same thing with upsells and fucking crushes. So that's probably, I'm gonna probably write that one to multimodality upsells. So when I started looking at this stuff, I started like, okay, well, how can I stretch economics? So basically, like, I created, in the group, I had like self-sorting upsells, then like, having the negative thing. And like, I really respect Russell Brunson because like he put a lot of numbers up. Like, like, I mean, people say what you will, but like the dude puts up numbers, and like he's also, did a lot of good because he brought a lot of people into the industry so we can all eat better, so he takes a lot of
very giving guy too. When I was doing my launch, him and I chatted a bunch when I was doing my launch back in December, and he gave me some great advice and some great feedback.
So his team implements a lot of the stuff I share, and I see it, and it's like crushing it. So that's great, that it works for him too. And so, in there we have like, a lot of the stuff, like, so like one thing now that I'm seeing is like not having downsells actually. So, typical upsell path is like, you'll have 15, 20%, 5 to 10, 3, whatever. It's like, not having downsells though. It goes 15, 13, 14. It keeps them. So not having downsells actually is better than having downsells in some cases.
So you're saying, for instance, say I had an offer that was a $50 offer. The first upsell was $500 or something like that, right? So instead of going from my $500 offer to like a downsell that's $250 without the bonuses or something, you're just saying skip the downsell, go directly to whatever your number 2 upsell is anyway, right?
Yeah, and then so if you have the downsells, if you have an email follow-up to a standalone upsell page, you'll get a 10% AOV lift. Again, economics, right? But if you don't have the downsell, you get like a 15, 20% lift when you go direct.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
You'll have a higher number. You'll have it because you don't have the no. That's why I came up in Nothing Held Back called the no thanks track. Like if they say no, they typically go no. And then it's like, here's the ultimate bundle. Well, yes, right. So that saves it. So yeah, I started doing a lot of stuff with that. And then like I kind of like bent, like I'm at the point where I'm like bending the like physics of economics now. Like I'm kind of maxing that out.
Yeah.
And then I'm on to like other stuff now, like kind of like innovating in other areas. Right. And and so like I just look at the, it's like that's one thing. And so it's like with copy, it's like great, but there's a lot more things because the thing is like with copy, right? It was like it was developed as a tool in like 100 years ago, right? And it's like we have so much more we can do. So it's like, why rely on it solely? And then the other thing is when I was down speaking at Copy Accelerator, my talk was like the nature of competition and how to win.
Yeah.
And one of the points was like basically like low and high emotional states, right? And this really ruffled a lot of feathers because a lot of people didn't like this idea because it's like, truth is like sharp, shit cuts, shit cuts. Yeah, and it's like when you kind of sell the truth, it's like some cuts you,
Especially if it's the truth, people don't want to be the truth, right? Like I always like one of my shticks is like, worship reality, see the world, see people the way they actually are. But that's tough for folks because they don't want to see the world. They don't want to understand the deep primal animalistic aspects of us and those kind of things.
Yeah. So what happened was like in that talk, like a lot of people started questioning what they were doing, right? Because like that community sells a lot of supplements, right?
They do, yeah.
And so one thing I realized, selling, the whole joke about dark lording and shit is I sold a lot of questionable shit in my day, and I got really fucking good. Yeah, really good at it. So I swung like my refund rates now on my products are like 2%, dude.
Yep.
super low. And so I swung the other way completely, right? Because I learned through mistakes not to do it. So I offer like value beyond anybody else. But working in a lot of these offers and stuff like that over the years and my own, I recognize this pattern of like, well, then I started looking at like, when you do, it's all about spectrum, right? So like when we were doing like, for example, like $500 VSLs, right? With that, so the VSLs we did the money by, it was like a $500 VSL with the $1,000 upsell, whatever, right? That I talked about earlier. We had, it was always a spectrum, right? So if you have, for example, like 100 people, 3 will buy the most expensive shit, right? So for example, this MacBook Pro I'm on, I think it's like $7-8 grand every fucking year. Apple gets I will buy the most expensive thing Apple has. And the reason is I don't like to upgrade. And even though I upgrade, right? That's my stupidity, right? On the other hand, you have 100 people that buy something, they'll buy the cheapest thing no matter what. Just the cheapest thing. And then people in the middle, right? So it's a spectrum thing. And so what happens with like a lot of these offers, it's like, there's this concept that I came up with, and I didn't come up with, I just didn't recognize that it's like low emotional states and high emotional states, right? It's a big difference. And like, I've been meaning to write this in the fucking group for a month and a half since I spoke down there. I've just been lazy and I've been busy, but so
I don't think you're lazy, Alan. Nobody would describe you as lazy. You work your ass off.
So. Well, yeah, but it's like, so some people like, like what I realized is that people in low emotional states, like, so people that are depressed, sad, sick, hurt, wounded, whatever, they're basically kind of hopeless, right? They will watch long form VSLs, like a 45, 50-minute VSL. So if you look at a supplement copy, a lot of them is like, horror story, whatever. It's very dark, right?
Yeah. It's all starting off in the hospital. You're about to have an alien burst through your chest because you didn't take a diet supplement for some reason.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So low emotional state. So people like, so what happens with a lot of these businesses, I noticed is like, I remember with Mark Jenny, he told me years ago, we were like at some club drinking in Vegas or something. And like, he started a web hosting company. He left biz up, right? He left biz up. And like, how is it? He's like, bro, it's like the energy is like completely fucking different. It was like night and day. And I never forgot that conversation. And I remember in my business too, like energetically, like, before it was like really like dark, and now it's like a lot of light. Like I can't wait to do what I do. It's like, I love it. Like, but before I was like trying to avoid it. Right. And so I think
that was because you felt like you were doing things that were ethically questionable, or you just weren't passionate about it. What was the deal?
No, it's because the business attracts low emotional state customers. Right. So like one of the things I have is like, I'm really big into energetics, right? Of offers and stuff. So like, this iPhone, for example, right? You can tell like people in California or wherever, they put a lot of love into this damn thing, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of dinged up as a drop of a bunch of shines, but there's a lot of love. So I truly believe that like companies that scale big, they aggregate a lot of people into them, like Amazon, Google, Facebook, or whatever. And people love and believe in the product, which energetically attracts people to it, right?
Yeah.
And I have like data to back this up. Like, so like I tested this shit, like where nothing held back. Like I actually put myself in a really bad mood and I wrote a few posts, really great posts. The engagement was down, right? And then I was like, let me test it. Put myself in a good mood with good intentions, good energy, wrote it, engagement through the roof, right? So it's energetics. So that's one thing I'm really big on, but it's out of scope with this call. Kind of people think I'm fucking crazy, but so with low emotional state in those businesses, it attracts a lot of bad energy and you can feel it. There's this tension, there's this darkness, there's this heaviness around you, right? And then that's why a lot of times people that sell in those things, they're like, do drugs and shit like that, because ultimately it's not constructive to the human beings, right?
I don't feel like you're really contributing to things either. I feel like, I see that.
So a lot of the stuff with the long form direct response and VSLs in our industry, right, sells to low emotional state customers. So it's like, when I see people going around, they're like, well, I did this. I'm like, it ain't fucking hard when it's like somebody's like, has diabetes or, heart issues or cholesterol issues or like, low emotional state, feeling down, and you show up or an email or an ad, whatever. And it's like a story and it promises, if you just take this fucking pill, you'll feel better. Right.
It's like when my back was like nuclear bad 10 years ago, anything that would have promised me that you could get me out of that pain state, I'd pay attention and I'd watch it because I was desperate.
Damn. Stroke on that one. Well, same thing in the dating market, by the way. It's like low emotional state. You can recognize this, like women, right? They're like low emotional state, like hurt alone, fear of being alone.
Yep. Dying alone, being a cat lady is one of the big fears in that market that I've used.
Right. So low emotional states, right? Yeah. But the problem with low emotional states is they don't become repeat buyers. So, and they don't ascend well. So they buy a lot of one. They'll buy a lot of stuff, and they hop from person to person to save them. Totally. Right? They're basically they're like running around gripping.
Well, that's like my X-back list when I was running that offer really hot. Like the thing that sold well to the X-back list was selling more X-back stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So they're running around like trying to grip for some hope, right? And so, you don't get like a good human being, like you get like a really beat person, right? In like a low emotional state. And so once I recognize this, I'm like, I don't want to sell to these people anymore, because it's like, I am energetically like, it brings everything down. And then, that's where FTC complaints, that's where refund comes. That's where I can't do this comes. That's all this bad shit comes, right? And so the thing is, people in high emotional states, right? So for example, when I spoke down at Copy Accelerator, literally like room of 200 people, right? And I was on stage, and I'm like, please, hands up if you read this letter, because they had this like really long letter. And like Stefan is like a phenomenal, they're really good dudes. Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
No, they're both good friends of mine. They've been great to me. I got a lot of customers from the Copy Accelerator group because I spoke on their stage and shit. So
yeah, they did a lot of good, I think, in terms of like helping people do that. And so I asked them, like, how many of you guys read it? And like, not many people did. I think 2 or 3 people. But the lesson there was like, they're all high emotional state customers, because they're proactively trying to get better at something, right? They're not sitting there moping, right? And so then it was like, well, why do you write it, right? And then we started doing these like, short form VSLs, and then like, and then the first actually, once I realized this, the first one was that podcast VSL, right? Because it was like, well, if you're like a dude, right, or whatever, and like, you're well to do and you want to invest in crypto and shit, then it's like, well, why would you, do you really like? So let's do a podcast, and it's like, and $500, and I was like, holy shit! It's like boom. So the thing was, the high emotional state customers, they're a lot more price elastic.
And so by the podcast VSL, you mean like instead of doing like a standard VSL with a narrator and video on screen, it would be much like what we're doing right now, right? So you and I would be talking.
Did you see the podcast still post or no?
I saw the post ages ago. I don't think I've seen the actual podcast. Just for people, people that are listening that wouldn't know what that would mean necessarily. It would be, we'd be taking the exact same material from the VSL, but we'd be presenting it as a conversation as opposed to a narration kind of thing. Right.
Exactly. And so what happens like in that ecosystem of YouTube, it's like high emotional state people like to watch these podcasts. So you put them, so like the other part of my speech was like in Copy Accelerator, it's like, you have to hide the sales process, right? So like one of the things is like with, all marketing innovation comes from hiding the sales process. Like, so for example, a VSL was a video content back in the day, so it's like 30, 40, $50.
You would never mention there was a product until 10,
exactly,
12,
until the end.
Minutes
exactly. A sales letter was an article, right? A webinar was a free presentation, a strategy call was a sales, so hiding the sales process, right? And so with a podcast VSL, it's like, well, okay, how do we do it? How do we get the emotional customer and hide the sales process? Like, put in a fucking podcast, and we did, and fucking crushed. Because I remember when I first came up with it, told Scott was like, no fucking way, this is stupid. I'm like, do it. And like, so me and Grant were like, just do it. And like, it did. And like, you got up to 3 million a month real quick. And we just did another one. It's crushing the old one. The difference is, the new one is like 197 a month, and it's beating it like 821 or something, right?
I want to work on one of those funnels. That sounds super fun. I love that.
Yeah. I'll actually give you the whole formula and blueprint.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. It just sounds like, it sounds like something I'm well suited to as well. So,
well, what I want to see, I want you to take the foundation and then take it to the next level, because I think you can. I think you would fucking murder it, right? So absolutely. So and I think like Stefan, I gotta text Stefan, because I think like if he did one of his for the copy stuff, it would just fucking annihilate, because he has so much proof, right? He has so much proof. It's good. Yeah. So with and so it's like now we're like changing attention economics, right? Now it's going back to economics, right? Now we're hiding the sales process, and now we're it's like, instead of having the Rubik's Cube on one side, which is copy, we're twisting the fucker. Like we're doing a lot, and now it goes into scaling in a negative space. You can scale a lot harder, whatever, hiding the sales process. So yeah, I mean, I do a lot of that.
What you mean by that is, you can lose money on the front end because you've got the economics figured out, you've got everything else figured out, you can afford to lose the money on the front end of the business.
Yeah. So I mean, you have to have like an MLTV, right? So like your LTV, like lifetime value of the customer, is limited by your MLTV, and nobody thinks about this. MLTV is like maximum lifetime value. So for example, everybody I work with, the first thing is like, what's your MLTV? And they're like $2,000. And I'm like, okay, well, that's the most you can ever get from them.
Yeah.
We got to lift that up. So if you go to $100,000, then it's like, if somebody comes to you and say, Chris, I want to buy everything you got, how much? $100,000.
Yep. And
so what ends up happening is like, what I do is I architect sales cycles and relationship cycles in a process. So it goes sales cycle, relationship cycle, like that. Yeah. And then the copy and everything is the beginning to get them into those sales processes and cycles, right? So it goes process, cycle, relationship, whatever. And then that's how you harvest them. So what happens then, it's like, you might lose money on the first sales cycle, you make it on the second one, third one you're in profit, fourth one you're going up. And so it goes like, it's like, then it depends, like the first, like, because here's what happens, right? Every industry tends to end up being lead based on leads, right? So if you look at, for example, mortgages, if you look at car industry, if you look at credit cards, everything, it's all lead based, right? And then the lead base happens when economics are maximized. So two things happen. When economics are maximized, is either the model breaks, like in the supplements on ClickBank, on, government body comes in, or it goes into lead based. That's it. So if the industry is like without shadiness shit, it goes into lead based, and then basically that's it. And so that's one of the reasons,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's your advice for, we've been going an hour and a half, so I don't think we'll go super duper long, but I'm sure I think you and I could talk for 6 hours about this.
Yeah,
stuff.
dude, this is great. Yeah. I was actually like, what the fuck are we gonna talk about for 2 hours? But I'm like,
no, you were funny. You were like, should I prepare anything? I'm like, no, we're just gonna shoot the shit, and we'll see where it goes. And I'm sure good stuff will come out. Well, obviously I have a lot of copywriters who follow me, obviously, and a lot of them listen to this show. What's like the number one advice you would give to people that are working directly as copywriters right now? What do you think they should be scared of? What do you think they should be excited about? And where do you think they should be putting their energy?
Well, there's two things, right? Like in copywriters, that like a lot of programs, like I think, even yours and others, I think the burden isn't to teach copy. I think the burden is to get them clients, right?
So oftentimes, yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. And the ironic part,
well, I think the burden is a lot of people seem to be getting good at getting clients, but they can't deliver, right? Which to me is like, don't charge somebody 20 grand for something and then deliver shit. Right. Well, your career's over at that point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the key is to get better, get better, whatever. I don't know, man. It's like, I think the biggest thing is like to make sure they really want to do copy, right? Because like a lot of like, I love marketing. I love copy. It's like my jam, right? And it's like, I enjoy it, but you just got to make sure that it's your jam. And then also like, expand that tool set, I think, into learning how to compete with economics and everything. Cause you have to realize 99.99% of the world doesn't use sales copy to do much. I mean, we do, right? And the other thing is like, once you kind of start looking beyond, when you can take copy and then do, the psychology part and then put the economics part, the numbers part, then it's like the world opens, right? Because ultimately what it is like human beings, like, we can talk about like deep psychology. Yeah. I actually wish we spent more time talking about
we'll do another episode at some point, and we'll just talk about psychology.
Because man, I got a lot to say on this.
No, I think you and I could have a really interesting conversation on that. So we'll save that one for some other time.
Sure. Yeah. But I think like what happens is like choice is better than no choice. So if you really look at like all human beings, like what they're after is choice, right? So for example, in the upsell path, if you give a self-sorting, they want choice, right? The reason people get better in relationships because they want to have a choice. The people they want to make more money, they want to have choice, right? So it's always choice. So I think like my advice is like, get good at everything, don't just, get good at everything. And then, so you'll have more choice. And the reason being is like, right now, for example, like I have this whole strategy on like irrationality. Like I know how to actually build irrationality into a market. Like I can create irrationality, right? So irrational math works like this: if then outcome. Rational math goes if then outcome, right?
Yep.
That's it. And so crypto, for example, if you want to do a CRO, CMO stuff, right? It's like crypto will pay $250,000, $500,000, $750,000 a year to work on that project. Like, so I have a friend that went into it and he's getting paid a shit ton of money to work like hour and a half a day, right?
Awesome.
So, I did some work with Forbes magazine. Like right now there's a architect with the Mike Tyson offer.
Yep.
And then there was like the other celebrities. So it opens up a lot of potentiality.
Did you guys use for the Mike Tyson offer? Did you use that video of him punching the crap out of somebody on an airplane?
No, actually, it's a number of us, to be fair. It's Dan Ferrari, Mike Abramov, me, and then Mike Balancita brought the deal to the table. And like Dan Ferrari is a phenomenal copywriter. And Mike Abramov is like a fucking great pleasure to work with. Yep. And I'm just kind of like I'm architecting the funnel and general ideas and stuff like that, like the structure of it. And then Mike, I think, is writing, and I think Dan is copy chiefing. I think that's the setup. Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
Good setup.
So yeah. So it opens up a lot more possibility for you. But as far as copy goes, I think it should be a focus on timeline, right? Like getting shorter is going to win now, because like what we find with like shorter VSLs, like 10 15 minutes, whatever, it's like if you look at a long VSL, it's like you have 100 people start to leave, right? On a shorter VSL, what happens, like you have more bodies at the checkout page.
That makes total sense.
And therefore just the numbers
more people seeing the offer. But I guess you'd also have more people ditching when they see the offer as well, if they haven't been kind of warmed up or romanced enough in the actual VSL at that point. But,
yeah, it's a fine balance for sure. Yeah, it's a fine balance. But like we've seen, like, the shorter ones do like 4% conversion rates.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. And the longer ones do
And what
less.
kind of price points is that?
Up to $97.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Haven't tested beyond that.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what you can do with like a 500 or something like that. And what kind of the minimum length to pull that off would be. I think it'd be difficult to pull off, but.
Yeah. I think so there's this thing, it depends on the convincer, like how easily convinced they are. Like if it's automatic convincer models, then it's like, they're pretty fucking easy, but then it's like, so one of the things, for example, in copy I do, it's like, if you want to write to a market, you look at the emotional market and you look at a convincer model, right? So it's like, there's this thing called the automatic convincer model, right? And so people are like, you ever have any friends and you go to them and you're like, hey man, we should go do this. And he's like, let's do it. Like just easily convinced, right?
Ready to go. Don't need any no objections. No, nothing. Just
right. So when it comes to that, like, for example, there was one offer that I worked on, like, it was like knowing this, like in a spectrum of 100 high ticket, lower ticket, right? We just hit the kind of automatic convincer models, right? Yeah. Everything was written for them. And then dude, it's like they bought the upsells and then the back-end coaching, I think for like $8,200, they were literally, I remember their sales guy saying like, what are the objections? They're like, no, it's none of them. Just like, sure, why not? That was it. Yeah. Like, unless they had money. Yeah. And so what we found, like if you have high ticket coaching, you need to get the automatic convincer model in the front, because what happens in the back, they just fucking slide in, right? Versus like if you have this like VSL that explains stuff and like all this stuff, whatever, then when they get in the back, it's like, they're like, well, how's this work? What's this? Like billion questions, and it's like, you have to wrestle with them. So like knowing that stuff would be good. I don't know, man, ask me more stuff. Like, I don't know, like with the copy stuff, there's so much, like my brain is like literally.
I just always say, like, for me, that what made me a way better copywriter, I think, was starting my own offers, right? Like moving from being, you working with you on Mobile Money Machines was it was you and Dan Roitman were like the last two that I did basically, right? For Pimsleur, and they both did quite well, which was awesome. But then I moved over and started doing my relationship advice stuff, my Michael Fiore stuff. And all of a sudden I was in the ClickBank stats every day, right? And I was in the email stats every day. And I could talk to, even when people were trying to hire me as clients, they saw me more as a peer because I could speak the numbers in a way that I couldn't have before. Yeah.
I learned copy because it was never intentional to like be a copywriter for others. It was just because I had to learn it to sell shit. Like I couldn't make money otherwise. So you have to get good at it, right? Yeah. Well, that's actually a great thing you say there, because it's like so there's two parts to copy, right? They're like offer owners. There's people that like to build offers. There's people that like to run offers. So if you're a copywriter, I think the biggest thing is basically choosing your people who you work with is going to have like 95% impact on your career trajectory. Makes right?
Total sense. Yeah.
So for example, like with Scott Phillips, right? Like Scott was doing like $100,000 a month and it didn't need much. It was like, so I just did a podcast VSL, got him $3 million a month, right? That's a big trophy, right?
That is a very, very large jump. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so with the Alex Jones offer, like Mike came to me and he's like, Nick Verge wrote it. Phenomenal copywriter, by the way, if you don't know Nick.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I came up with the architecture to go, how do you do it? And it's like, okay, got that trophy. And I got the Alex Jones trophy, right? Then it was like Caitlyn Jenner shit. We did that one. It's like, got that trophy. Now it's like Mike Tyson got that trophy. Forbes magazine got that trophy. So it's like the advice to me, I guess, if it came down to it, is like choose who you work with carefully. That's going to implement your stuff. So the data comes back. Not only will you make more money, but your reputation will build. And I think because I see guys like in the mastermind that I have, whatever. It's like a lot of them, like, well, not a lot of them. Some of them will basically go and get deals, and it's with people who don't know how to run offers.
Yep.
And then it's like it's your fault. The copy sucks. It's this sucks. So hold on a second.
It's always the copywriter's fault. Yeah, always. Yeah.
I have one guy. They ran this offer and they came to me to optimize it. And I'm looking at it. And so I'm like, well, this is like, we tested a bunch of stuff, right? I'm like, okay. So, I'm pretty like known. I can't hold like, I tend to kind of say it how it is. I don't like to sugarcoat shit. Yeah. So I tried for like a few calls. I was like very like patient. And then I was like, look, man, it's like, just because you have this thing here and you get a bunch of people to opt in doesn't mean they're going to buy, or you're getting curiosity opt-ins. You're fucking this up. And I'm like, I don't care how many curiosity opt-ins you split tested. They're curious. They're not interested in buying. Big difference. Interest and curiosity.
So yeah.
And he was like, it was like, right. And it's like, I was actually like consulting on that deal. And then I was like, went to the guy and it was like, well, shit, like that, it's like, it's like he was kind of like the guy was, hands tied behind his back. It's like, well, what can you do if you have to deal with stuff that's in your way, right? Where it's like working with teams and companies that are very supportive, and that's how you grow, right? So I think that's the biggest thing, because I got lucky, right? I got lucky to, help a lot of people along the way, like, Jay, Steve, countless people that were like phenomenal at running offers. And like, I got to earn my trophies. Right.
Yep.
And I think what happens these days is, even like today, people will do like, writing on, royalties and shit. And, the offer owner will be like, well, we changed three words, so it's like not yours anymore. We don't have to pay you, whatever.
Man. Yeah.
They got me once like that though.
Yeah, I always tell students of mine, I'm like, if you're going to get some kind of royalties, don't expect that money to show up. Like do the work for the money you get up front and then hope the royalties show up later. And if they don't, then that kind of happens. I've also been talking a lot. I had 2 students recently where I was like, they came to me with offers they were working on. And I was like, you should not have taken this job. They have set you up to fail from day one because
unrealistic expectations.
One was a launch that's at the middle of the launch and the copy sucks and the messaging sucks and there's no way she's going to be able to turn it around. And the other was just an offer where it's like they're trying to sell, it was just some stupid vegan cheese thing that was never going to work in the way they were trying to make it work.
I remember watching this seminar with Carlton, right? He did a seminar and there was a guy in the front, right? And like he wanted to sell like rugs for using copy. And Carlton was like, he was so trying to be so hard to be nice. I could tell he was like, you stupid, dumb piece of shit. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like
my favorite one years ago is when I was working as a freelancer and some guy called me up and he's like, Chris Haddad. I'm like, yeah, that's me. He's like, I hear you're really good. I'm like, I'm really good at this. Sure. He's like, I want to hire you to write a VSL for me. I'm like, okay, what's it about? He's like, it's about how to get into porn. I'm like, wow. Oh, so it's about how to teach guys how to become porn stars. Okay, cool. That sounds great. He's like, no, it's for women. I'm like, oh, you want to be a woman getting into porn? Just become a stripper. That's hard. Not, it's not like there's no product here that is worth.
That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that we're going to try to do.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest lesson that's kind of like overlooked, right? It's like people who you work with. I think it's the same thing with everything. Like if you look at like sport players, it's like a lot of the success will be like what team you play on, right? Because like you can't really carry the shit yourself, and then it's like. I think this thing you said about unrealistic expectations is really big. And it's like, we want to double conversions or like the other thing is like, so one of the things is like, you can either change your offer or change your audience. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what is it? It's like, so a lot of them are like, they don't want to change their audience. They want to change the offer. Well, the audience sucks.
Yep.
Can't do shit here. Right. So for example, like a year ago, the Facebook pixel, YouTube pixel, like any idiot, with half a brain could make money. Right. And everybody was a guru and expert.
Yep.
Well, the pixel is blind now. So they're like, well, my ads aren't working. The copy isn't working. It's like, it's your fucking offer.
Yep.
And so I have like, I have friends that run agencies, like, right. And so it's like, I see it and it's like, they blame the agency, like they go to the agency and they're like, we have this offer, just make it work. And they're like, can't do it. And it's like, so again, I think the copywriter's success largely depends who they work with.
I always tell people too, like when people come, they'll hire me for consults for a few grand an hour. So like $3,000, $4,000 an hour or something like that. And oftentimes I'm just like, why didn't you do this 3 months ago? Why didn't you come to me before you wrote your damn sales letter, before you named your product, before you came up with the concept? Because now you've got this thing that is not what the market wants and is not very easy to sell whatsoever. Whereas if you come earlier, I could have helped you get the thinking down of this and got an offer that would actually work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think the biggest thing is like, I do like when I spoke down at Copy Accelerator in Tampa, like it was beautiful, right? Because it was like a lot of like, like I when I talked about like I came into this land, there's like a magic. Where's the magic? Yeah. And so that was actually the genesis of Nothing Held Back, because Keith Baxter owned nothingheldback.com. I think 04, 05.
Yeah.
And Brunson was in it. Yeah, everybody was in it, right? Yeah. And I was like, I bought the brand from Keith because I was like, I wanted to carry on that tradition. So like my long-term value contribution to the industry, just to give it to the industry, it's like it's not mine anymore, right? Yeah. That's it. When I'm ready to go, let it go. Yeah. And there was a lot of magic there, and it's like they're fragile, right? In terms of like, I'm not sure, am I going to be good? And it's like their work is being criticized in this world stage, right? But, with us, to be fair, Chris, it's like, a lot of the stuff we did was like email shit. So it's like somebody sends an email, it's like, your list sucks. It's not us, it's you.
Oftentimes. It is always funny how people just always want to blame the copywriter, right? And like every single time they want to say it's the copywriter who didn't do it. And I'm like, no, man. Like, it's like Brian Kurtz or the old adage and the thing. It's like, copy is the third most important thing, right? It's like offer, audience, or list, and then you actually get the copy at the end of it. Yeah, I think we should finish up because we've been going for an hour 45 and I really got to go to the bathroom. So
I got to go to the bathroom too. I've been chugging this shit all night.
Yeah, totally. Great, but we will do another of these at some point. I think what I want to do is get you and maybe one other person, have 3 of us do one at one point. I want to find somebody who I think would be really interesting to watch you have a conversation with and do something.
Me and Dan Ferrari did a call a few weeks ago, and it was like fuck, it was like, man, we talked a lot. It was so good because like a lot of the stuff I did, he did with Motley Fool, I think, and other things. It was like, holy shit, you did it too. I did it too. And it's like,
that's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, no, the thing I'm really strong in like human psychology, like I know how to move people. And so like this call was like kind of like fuck all over the place, but like with the human psychology, I think it'd like be a lot more value to people, like really like, you know, like this low emotional. So let me just, can I just take 5 minutes?
Yeah, we're not in a rush, man. Yeah.
So just to finish off, like low emotional state, high emotional state. Like, so for example, like if you have somebody in a low emotional state, I just want to give somebody like some fucking takeaway value, right? So
I think they've already got, I think you underestimate how much takeaway value people have already gotten. But
I think this was like nothing, honestly.
No, it is nothing for you. It's nothing for me, but the market is not as up there, right? So
wow.
It's like a lot of, even my pig method course, right? I did my course and I did the first half of it and I showed it to like Mike, who works with me, and my wife, Angie, some others. I'm like, is this stuff too basic? And they're like, this is not remotely basic whatsoever, right? Because if you know something, you always think it's Dunning-Kruger stuff more than anything else.
Well, I will say 2 things. Okay, so 2 things. Let's talk about, let me just write this down so I don't forget, because I'm gonna, like, my brain tends to kind of be very abstract. It's really important. So low emotional states, selling process. Okay, so when it comes to learning from people, right, and copywriters, you got to realize that like each person has a convincer model, how they're convinced, right? So Chris, for example, you are probably sold through story and stuff like that, right? You love a good story, right? Me too. I'm a sucker for stories. So for example, like I get into things when there's like, you know, when I was traveling a lot, I got into backpacks, right? Because it's like these fucking guys would be like, you know, backpack, have a world adventure. So I'm like, I bought all the backpacks. And if you have somebody that's convinced on that model, we tend to sell well with that model, right? And so if you, Chris, for example, are told to story and you teach others how to do stories, but if somebody doesn't have that model, like, so Stefan, for example, has a certain way he sells, and that's his buying process. So your buying process is a reflection of your selling process.
That makes total sense.
So the biggest thing with the copywriter is like whoever you're learning from, be it whoever it is to make sure that your buying process matches your mentor's buying and selling process. So that way you'll be aligned. I got lucky because my buying process was pretty fucking similar to Gary Halbert.
Makes total sense.
And I could absorb everything he said.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people that tried, they're like very logical, whatever, couldn't learn, right? So that's one. The second thing is like low emotional state, high emotional state markets. How do you do it? If you want to have a low emotional state market, use the word why. Use the word why, right? So we had a guy in Fast Forward, he actually posted in the group, literally doubled his conversions doing this. He says, like, it's a low emotional state market. Yeah. Why? So all his ads are like, why you're overweight, why your back hurts, why? Because the why.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why men won't call you back? Why men leave? Why men pull away? Why men pull away? In our niche, looking at, you know, email stats, looking at everything else, why men pull away is like the number. I've used that subject line. I've used that for tons of things over the years.
Why? Yeah, exactly. So every single low emotional state market word, a why, because a why is a reflective word up to the past and looks in a mirror, right? So they seek understanding. So
makes sense.
I'm gonna write a big post tomorrow, day after. You're gonna love it. Now the word in high emotional states, the word how is the word how. Okay. How, right? So if you have some high emotional states, how, we want to know how to do it. We're in solution state,
people in
right?
in a higher emotional state, they're ready to take action, right? They're ready to kind of solve the problem in some way, as opposed to with why, it's like, they don't care why me? They're kind of feeling bad for themselves and powerless, I would say. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so that's why, like with high emotional states, you can, if you use the word how strategy, you can shorten the sales process in a VSL to get to the how, and they get to the mechanism, how it works, and they buy, and they're very good buyers. With low emotional state, use the word why. So in your advertising email, if you just drive the why. So for example, if you have somebody that you know that's like in a bad mood, low emotional state, if you want to really, you can try this, really fucking eat them up, right? So for example, if you talk to a guy that's that his girlfriend dumped him or whatever, you can go like, dude, why did she do that? Why did she treat you like that? Why did that happen? Why? And literally, so the human brain, the way it works, dude, we got to do the psychology call. It's be great.
We're gonna do it. Yeah.
The human brain, what it works, if you loop it for 90 seconds in a negative states, it's like the flywheel takes off on its own. It goes into the body. So that's why like the horror story openings on VSLs are that long, because it takes them that long to put them into their body. When they're in their body, then they basically need a savior. And so if you have any openings or whatever, why are you doing? Drives them crazy. If you have somebody in a high emotional state, you tell why. It's like, I don't give a fuck why. Just don't know how to do it. Just tell me how to fucking do it.
Yeah.
If somebody's in a low emotional state, they don't get how, they want to why, right? And so that's kind of the thing. So I have
I've never heard that particular way of framing it before. That's really fucking interesting.
Yeah, dude, like next time we do a call, I'm gonna pull up my notes. I have like 2,000 notes, and I'm gonna like bust out the fucking
absolutely. We'll schedule that in the near future, because I think people will get a lot out of that one.
We'll bust out the weapons and fucking dig into it. But
yeah, that'll be super fun. I'm all about that.
Literally, like you So the whole Dark Lord joke is like, Darth Vader can go brr, like you know, you can move shit. That's like once you, that's when you learn this shit, you go literally like that and you move the market. You literally bend markets, and people have no idea.
It is funny how like studying persuasion for so long and writing copy for so long, I've talked about this before, it just changes your view of humanity. I feel like,
you know what the biggest change for me was?
Yeah.
Early on, I wanted to influence people and everything, right? After I learned all this shit, I don't care. I'm like, I just want to do me, you do you. I'm completely like, here's the, so there's this big debate like between, the left and right, liberal, conservative, right? So the way I reconcile that equation is like, reasonable minds can differ, right? And to me, that's how I became very accepting, like, of people. So it's like, you're reasonable, I'm reasonable, but reasonable minds can differ. So therefore it's okay. We can still be friends. It doesn't matter, right? And that was like done, right? And that was the biggest thing. But yeah, dude, I'm gonna write this post for emotional states. I think like it'll be great. It'd be great. And I'm doing nothing held back stuff, and I'd love to have you on my stuff too.
Oh, absolutely, dude. Yeah, I think I was talking to Nick or whatever else about coming into your group. Actually, one of my students was telling me that they were excited because you had mentioned that I was going to come on. I'm like, it's such an incestuous loop of like going. Forwards. Yeah. Well, no, absolutely, man. Anything you need, I'm more than happy to do it.
Well, I'm glad it's incestuous because it's like, I'll be honest, I don't respect a lot of people in this industry, but you're one of the people I do respect because progressive knowledge versus regressive knowledge, right? So it's like, your shit, and like if I send you customers or people I trust, they'll be taken care of, and like you'll empower them. They'll come back and spend more money with me or you, whatever. They're taken care of.
Well, plus, like I feel the same way, and also even people that are listening, like we both know what we're doing, we both care, we're both actually like I had a potential student the other day. I'm doing these sales calls right now as we build out a sales a call funnel for it, and I had a potential student who said like, Chris, from watching your videos and talking to you, I can tell you actually care, unlike the people I've been burned by. Because, she was telling me they'd been burned 3 or 4 times by gurus who took their money and delivered nothing.
You know what it is, right? It's like I find like a lot of corporate cats, right? Like in this industry, they come in. Like, I don't know if you're a corporate cat, but I never had a real job, right? And so it's like
I had some crappy real jobs in LA, and then I was a temp for a while before I fell into this stuff.
The dudes that work, the dudes are like a little older, like 28, 30, whatever. They work in corporate America. They come into this shit. They're very much transactional. Yeah. What can you do for me? How much is it? Let's fucking go. This is business, not personal. I don't like you, right? And I think the era of you and I, where I come from, like we're literally like the dudes, like the hobos that kind of walked into this space. We're not corporate cats. No. The corporate cats have a different energy than us. And the way that exhibits its certain values, like we value people instead of like,
I think our generation is a lot of people who just couldn't do anything else, right? Like for me, like I just got fired from every job I ever had. I had no other options. And then somehow I stumbled into copywriting, and it worked out really, really well for me. Like it wasn't lucky, like, man. I just totally got lucky. Cause when I was in my mid-20s, I thought, I wanted to be a screenwriter for a while, but I had no real passion or drive for it. And then I never made more than 30,000 a year until I was like 26 or something like that. And then all of a sudden it kind of went off in that direction. And I think a lot of people that are from that generation, they're kind of the island of misfit toys who somehow found this industry. Instead of it being like, hey, I'm a business person who wants to go do this, right?
The magical land, dude. Yeah, we're all lucky. We're very fortunate to be like. That's why I loved it. Like I'm like, dude, I'm like luckiest motherfucker on earth. Like I get to wake up and like do like, dude, think about it. Like we come up with shit in our minds. We put them on paper. And then we have these like $1 billion structures like Facebook and YouTube where we can run ads for next to nothing.
It's freaking amazing.
Right. And then it's like strangers all over the world give us money. It's like, what the fuck? It's
so weird. Like when you mentioned like a while, like an hour and a half ago, about being in like a coffee shop and seeing somebody buying your product, right? And I've had that experience too. I've also had people I've had people walk up to me and say, "Are you Michael Fiore?" Right? And it's always, and I'm like, only on Tuesdays, but not right now, right? He doesn't have a mustache. But it's so weird. It's weird. I think maybe I played too many video games in my life, but I forget sometimes that it's not just a game, right? That it's not just like, hey, I'm at my keyboard and I'm pushing buttons and things go out, and then it's in the real world.
Do you ever get like so when I was down in Copy Accelerator, like like I'm really good at like branding and positioning and shit. So with nothing held back, I kind of over position myself. Like it's like this was the landing strip, and I'm over here, right? People felt like weird and intimidated to come talk to me, dude. It was like so uncomfortable. I'm like, dude,
they do. Yeah.
So I just went up to the bar.
When I go to Copy Accelerator, people literally line up to say hi, and they want pictures and whatever else. It's awesome. I get it, right? Because I remember like looking up to Jeff Walker and John Carlton and things like that when I was younger. But it is when you don't see yourself as that kind of person, and then people are treating you like that, it's very weird.
Yeah, so I went up to him and I just started drinking with him. It was like fucking great. I'm just a normal dude, just like you, just I'm just ahead on the timeline. That's it, right?
Yeah.
What we're doing, we're planning a Nothing Held Back event, dude. And it's like, I don't know if you remember the old parties like 10 years ago, like events where it was like very tribal. So like the whole thing is like going to be like basically a giant party. And so it's gonna be like literally people on stage, like sharing, teaching, whatever. And then we're just gonna like have like an open bar at the event.
Fucking awesome, dude.
And like hookahs, whatever, because I know we can't fucking smoke.
Well, let me know the date so I can block it off because I really want to come.
Yeah.
I just got invited to go speak in England in August. So that'll be fun. But
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So do the big event and we'll do it. And then we want to do like big event and then like just rent a club out or some shit like at night and like no selling though, just having fun drinking and sharing and and
deliver value. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
like
it's all about networking. That's what I tell the kids in my group. I'm always like, don't go to conferences looking for clients. Go to conferences looking for relationships. Get drunk with people. Make friends. That's how you're going to make the money long term.
Exactly. Well, all my relationships were built in bars, all around events. Like it wasn't like any. Like I've never like to be honest with you. Like, I've never been to an event where I actually listened to people talk other than Copy Accelerator. That was the first time. Like I would just go to drink. I just go to drink and hang out, and it was like. But yeah, so we're planning that. It'll be good. We're trying to find a location now. And my whole vision is like just to bring these like underground killers to like share real shit and just like have a good time, And like, so we're going to have like a bar cart on stage. So it's like,
I can't wait. I can't, for actually speaking to the bar thing, before I got into this business, I never drank, right? Like
really?
I was just not a drinker. Whatever. My dad was an alcoholic. He was highly functioning, but whatever else, but he was an alcoholic. And for some reason, I just never did. Then I started going into business things and I'm like, well, you have to go to the bar in order to actually, if you don't go to the bar, you're not going to make the deal. So either get like a Sprite and pretend or have a goddamn drink.
One time we were in New York, right? And like, so New York is the worst place to have events because like everything, like everybody scatters to like 500 different, like, and so we, a bunch of us get into this damn bar. It's like some underground basement bar. And it was like, I think like Macaulay Culkin was there or some shit.
Oh my God, weird. Yeah.
His crew was weird. Like, so they're like sitting in a corner, tank tops and like pajamas on, and they have these like fucking Polaroid they're taking pictures of each other. Like it's fucking weird, right? Yeah. So we're got that fucking bar, get drinks, and my buddy Steve like grabs a drink and like I think he grabbed somebody else's drink, right? He drinks it. He drinks it, and like he bought a drink, and somebody tried to roofie somebody, and he drank the roofie drink. All fucked up.
Did he just like collapse in the middle of the thing?
No, he was like, dude, I don't know where I am. What the fuck's going on? I can't feel myself. Like he was just started spazzing the fuck out.
Oh man, that's nuts. That's nuts.
So no, it was terrible. It was terrible. Yeah, no. Mike Filsame has historically. I was talking to Mike the other day. He had the best parties of all time.
Mike Filsame has gotten me the drunkest I have ever been.
Oh God.
The one time I missed a flight was because of Mike Filsame.
Mike Filsame is one of the best people, dude.
He's a great
guy. It's so good to be in this, like I was talking to somebody. It's so cool to like age in this industry, right?
It is, yeah.
And just kind of like help the new generation come up and kind of like see new things and kind of like lift them up and kind of so they can pass it on to the next generation.
I really enjoy, being in my 40s. I mean, I think you're like roughly
38
40 or whatever.
38, yeah.
I just find the older I get, the more I really enjoy the teaching and the giving, and like that kind of thing.
Yeah. I was talking to Mike Filsame. He's doing a lot of stuff with Groove, and it's like he just had the same energy. Like I can tell it's like, because it's like you can make money anywhere. Like, so money's a commodity. Like, big lesson to copywriters, right?
Yeah.
Money's a commodity you can get anywhere else. You can steal it, borrow it, sell something. It's everywhere. The shit is everywhere. It's a commodity. You can get money anywhere. Your skill and who you are and what you know is not. That's very rare. That is more rare than anything else. So it's like you can't value yourself. Just truly value yourself because money is a commodity. And don't.
Well, even like what I've said, if I lost everything tomorrow or you lost everything tomorrow, that would suck. But we both have skills where we could. I would call you up and say, let's do an offer. You'd call me up. You'd call up any of your other billions of friends, and we can bring it back because they can't really take the skills from you, even if you lose all your cash.
Yeah, dude. I mean, so it's like. Yeah, I mean, I've been up and down a lot too. You have too, right? It's like you build an offer, you spend a lot of money, and you come back. This industry operates. What most people don't realize, I've been in this a long time. It's like 5 years, 7 year cycle. So it's like 5 years of stability. Like so it's like talk about breaking the model, right? So people will figure out the model, the webinar model, the VSL model, the low book funnel model, the coaching model, the ClickBank, dating model,
podcast VSL model now.
Yeah, 5 years stable, and then to year 6 it starts to die out. Year 7. So right now we're in year 7 of the changeover. That's why a lot of people are kind of. It's interesting because you'll see this new thing like me, you, and other people coming in, and kind of like the old guard of the bullshit is dying out.
Yeah.
The change cycle. Yeah. So, but money's that was the biggest thing. that was one of the biggest things in the recent few years that kind of was like, holy shit, money's a commodity. And like, I never, because then it's like you disassociated from me, like, man, this shit's not that important, you know?
Yeah. I think one of the best things I ever did for myself was like detaching my ego from money, right? Detaching and again, when I got sick, I was forced to do that. And I always say that was like one of the most valuable things I could go through in my life, because it forced me to focus on who I am as a person, and by the value I bring as a person, as opposed to what I bring as a business person, or as somebody that can make it rain with cash and all that shit.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing for me was like, company money is not my money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that was the thing, like, because then it's like, if if it's your money, then it's like, shit, man, I can go buy this other thing instead of paying this person. And now, it's like, company's money is not my money. And so it's like, it was the separation.
That is a good psychological shift to be able to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge. And so that way it's like, I'm not paying for all this. The company's saying, all right, dude, listen, I know you got to pee. Thank you so much for having me.
I guarantee there are people who are listening right now on the show who are like, just keep going for 9 more hours, please.
Dude, I guess like I really want to do, the psychology part.
We'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it like a month or two. We'll just book it out for like a month or two so I can get some other guests in first. Cause I have people who are like, why haven't you asked me yet? I'm like, dude, there's only 52 shows a year. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of awesome people. You can only fit so much, but I would definitely want to have you back in the near future.
All right, thanks, bro.
Yeah, totally. For folks that are listening, go look up Alan's Nothing Held Back group on Facebook. I get nothing for telling you to do that, but it's a really, really.
And there's nothing to buy there either.
Nothing to buy there. But it is there's like 7,500 people, almost 8,000 people in there now.
Yeah, like 8,000 now. Yeah. I think I consider it's who's who of the marketing space, and it's the nucleus of the industry. So like, it's cool because it's like no pitching. No, I don't sell shit. I don't pitch shit in there. Nobody does. So it's like,
anybody that does, they get their post deleted pretty damn quickly.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you, Chris. Have a great day, bro.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's been awesome. I really we never really had a chance to just talk before. So yeah, pretty damn good. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording. Right. Oh yeah, by the way, people who are listening, go review this. Go to iTunes, go to Spotify, go talk about the amazing things that Al and I talked about, because the more reviews we can get, the more stars we can get, the better. And please tell your friends, tell your enemies, and that's going to be it. Bye-bye.
Dude.
Yeah.